pecan pound cake.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it was a new recipe. I had never done it before, and not so sure I'd do it again. But I had a meeting today with some friends, and I wanted to make sure they had something good.
Well, that's nice of you.
Can't wait till these meetings are back in person. All the goodies we're going to have.
Hey, we can call an in-person meeting anytime we want.
This is true. This is absolutely true.
Tom, any word on Alan?
No. I ended up calling last week and just left a message on his phone, but I haven't gotten an update. I was contemplating popping in down at the highway department tomorrow just to check in and see if anyone can provide any updates.
Yeah, I know. I do know he's home.
Oh, good. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, he's home.
That's a good thing. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so the time is now 6:30 and the full board is here. So before we begin, I do have an introduction to tonight's remote meeting. This open meeting of the Mendon Board of Health is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's updated guidance on holding meetings pursuant to the Act extending certain COVID-19 measures that was signed into law on June 16, 2021. This act includes an extension until March 31st, 2023 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Mendon Board of Health is convening by video telephone conference as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. This meeting will feature public comment. Time is now 6:31, and I will hand it over to the chairman of the board, Alan Greenberg.
Thank you very much, all. I appreciate everybody coming to tonight's meeting and the public for dialing in and listening to what we have to say. The first item on the agenda is to discuss some regulations with Daniel Markman. So Daniel, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes,
Perfect.
thank you.
So the first set of regulations that I wanted to discuss were food regulations. So as I'm sure you folks are all familiar, right now we're operating on the 105 CMR 590. That's the food code set by the state. But typically each town will adopt their own little secondary regulations that go on top of that. When the grant that afforded my position was first started, one of the goals was kind of to standardize regulations across the towns. So that way, somebody who made a restaurant that wanted to open up another restaurant in, let's say, Blackstone, but had made one in Mendon, will know that the expectations for both towns are the same or very close to it. They need the same paperwork, they've got the same process. The only thing that would be different are fees and maybe certain other small things. So the food standardization regulations, oh, that's a mouthful, sorry about that. These regs were made in September of last year, in consultation with Board of Health administrators from all 8 towns in the Blackstone Valley. To this day, Northbridge has adopted it with minor changes. The next Board of Health meeting for Hopedale will be discussing this. Millville already had regulations that were used as the basis for this, as well as Northbridge's. And I know that Uxbridge is interested in adopting them, but that's on their radar for April. So, I can answer any questions or concerns that you've got.
Anybody want to start off with some questions?
I guess I'll start. Hey, Dan, how are you? Thanks for joining.
Hello.
Do we have in hand a copy of these current regulations that you're looking for? It sounds like you're looking for the Board of Health and Mendon to adopt.
I'm not sure. That would be more of a Jack question. Because I didn't put the packet together.
Oh, Jack, is that something? I don't know that I've seen that. Do we have that available to put up, or?
I know there is a food code binder. I'm not familiar with Mendon's alone regulations.
It sounds like if I'm hearing right, Dan, it's this is a set of localized regulations that are a little bit separate from the state.
Correct. They're slightly more specific because obviously we can't go less strict. We can only add things.
Okay.
And they're based off of the regs that Northbridge was already using. And a lot of the requirements for what sort of paperwork to provide for permits is actually based on the standard operating procedure that Mendon has for their permits.
Okay.
So
it sounds like if we look at Northbridge, that's pretty good. That's pretty good representation of what we're kind of talking about this evening.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they've updated their website quite yet, but I do know that they've adopted these regulations already. So I'm not sure if they've updated the regs on their website to reflect this or not, but
Sure.
I
And
can
you
certainly,
mentioned, oh, sorry. I was just
I
going
was
to
going to
say,
say, I can certainly ask Jean for the Board of Health admin in Northbridge for a copy and then forward them to you folks.
yeah, I'd say we'd probably have to kind of have an opportunity to review those standards just to determine if that's something that would fall in line with what, we on the board would be looking to do. I would think that would be a first step anyway. That'd be my thought.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Dan?
Mhm.
Is this part of that group that's similar to the animal control officer? Do we get the rules and do we get the person at the same time? Is that part of that whole thing?
No. This is so there's no like specific organization really that does this. The Blackstone Valley Partnership for Public Health was formed as a collaborative to share resources between the 8 towns and also to obtain the grant. As part of that funding, we've been working on updating the regulations across the 8 towns to make them as similar as possible. So this would be something that your administrator and your health agent would just do as part of their regular responsibilities. In fact, a majority of the stuff that's on these regs, which hopefully you'll be able to see once you have a chance to review them, are already the same as what is happening now. So the paperwork that's required, the food manager certification, allergen, that sort of thing, is already reviewed in Mendon. All this would do is formally state what's needed in a regulation.
Alan?
Yes, so if I understand you correctly, Daniel, we're already probably almost there or there with the regulations, but this is an attempt at standardization.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, very good. So I would say that, you know, we can review the regulations that you're proposing, knowing that they're gonna be very similar to what we already have, and we can, you know, compare them. And then it's just a matter of, unless we see something that, you know, we don't agree with, we can, you know, question you more, to
Certainly.
find out the meaning behind it. And then we can just vote to adopt them. But I understand what you're saying about, you know, someone who has an establishment in one of the member towns wants to open another one in another member town. They know exactly what they're getting into because there's standardization across the board. And it's nice to know that we're already almost a mirror of these regulations. So,
Right.
you know, it should be a fairly simple thing for us to review. So as Tom mentioned, the first step is, you know, for us to put our eyes on them and compare them to what we already have.
Of course. And just to clarify as well, the intent is for the towns to share a foundation. By all means, if there are any changes that you want to make, I can definitely do that. I know, for example, that Northbridge changed the formatting slightly, and there were a few things that they added so that just to kind of consolidate these regulations with some of the other regulations they had. So their admin worked together with their board to finalize that, but I can definitely work with you folks to help tailor them towards Mendon. The idea is that the baseline is the same, but they don't have to be identical across towns.
Thank you.
They can't be any less. They can be more, but not less.
No less than the state. That is correct.
Right.
Tom?
Yeah, Dan, could you again just confirm which communities so far have actually adopted the standard? I know you mentioned Northbridge and I think Millville.
Northbridge has adopted it formally. Millville is still using the older regulation on which this one was based. Northbridge had a version of these regs originally. Millville had adopted them a couple of years back. When we started this project, I used Northbridge and Millville's regulations as the kind of starting point and just updated them. So right now, Millville has their own food regs, which are quite similar to what I'm proposing. Northbridge has updated theirs to be in line with what I'm proposing. But at this point, those are the only towns that either have adopted or have similar regulations. I know Uxbridge and Blackstone have their own regs, but they haven't been updated in a while. So,
Oh, okay. All right, great,
And
thank you.
And you said Hopedale was considering them?
at this moment, all I can say is that it's on the agenda for their next meeting.
Okay.
So I think they would like to consider, but I'm not sure if they will adopt it yet or not.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so the next part of that agenda item is rooster regulations, if we're ready to move on.
Yes, so we do have Richard Green on the line who can give us an update as to the status. Richard?
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
The last we heard the rooster crowing was Friday morning around 5 o'clock in the morning and it continued from there, but we haven't heard it since. Other than during daytime.
That's good.
Yes, it is.
Have we had any direct communication with the resident at 19?
Daniel Markman was the original one that had contact with them face to face.
All
But
right.
we have sent, Dan did issue them the first letter telling them how to rooster coop their, and a second letter did go out saying they had, again, basically restating everything. They had till the 20th, I believe it's this Monday, to have everything peace and quiet, or at least come to the board. And that letter was sent out a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I haven't heard from them saying that they want to present in front of the board.
Okay. What kind of contact information other than their address do we have? Do we have anything further than just their address?
Just strictly their address. There is no phone number and no email address.
Okay. But Monday is supposed to be the day.
The deadline, yes.
Okay. Fellow board members, any comments on the 19 Neck Hill Road?
Well, I would just ask Richard, as time has gone along over the last couple of weeks, how would you gauge the frequency of the disturbance?
It's less, but we haven't had windows open per se with cold weather. What we're afraid of, if you will, is once it starts getting warmer and we have a window open and we hear it more often, but so far it's been good. So other than Friday morning, I think I tell you 5 o'clock, it went 5:15, several times, but it's better than what it has been.
Okay, so there's some progress. That's a good thing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I think what I would propose is, Richard, if it were possible for you to send an email to Jack sometime on Monday as to, kind of an update where that was the deadline that was given, so that we can pursue it after the 20th. If it's still continuing, we can pursue it in some form. I don't want to wait till our next meeting
Yep.
to discuss it. That would be great.
Okay, will do.
All right,
Thank
thank you. I don't know if Daniel Markman had any comments on the first agenda item. It was a two-parter. There were food code regulations with which we discussed, and there was also rooster regulations. So Dan, in relation to what we just talked about at 19 Neck Hill Road and part B of number 1, anything that you would like to add a comment on, Daniel?
The only thing I can state is following that interaction, I did ask for some guidance from a contact at the state, a representative working for the Department of Agriculture, specifically in a poultry inspection division. I asked what tools and resources that we had using the existing Mass General Law to sort of tackle complaints like this one and ones in the future. And she told me that without specific local regulations, what we can do is extremely limited. So I can certainly propose some basic regulations, either for roosters in specific or for animals in general, based on what some of the abutting communities have adopted. Obviously, this will be geared for residential, not for agricultural. So this has nothing to do with farms. It's just regulations for folks that want to own these animals as effectively pets. But I don't have anything presented right at this moment, but I can definitely get to work on that if that's something the board is interested in.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Seeing that it does take us a certain amount of time to kind of, investigate and talk to different people. before we put any formal regulations into effect. So anything that you could bring us to that we could put our eyes on would greatly be appreciated. I'll let Tom speak to this, but I know in the past, Tom has cited a noise nuisance clause that comes down from the state level. I don't know if that is something that you're aware of, but that's what we've cited in the past.
That's correct. Chapter 111, Section 122, the general nuisance statute of Mass General Law. That one is typically applied very generally. It's a bit harder to apply for specific circumstances, and noise complaints from animals are a little difficult to quantify using just that. The language in that citation says that the nuisances have to be a cause for harm or spread of disease. And the crowing of a rooster at an early morning hour, while annoying, might not fully qualify as that. And unfortunately, while there are existing noise pollution regulations, I believe it's 310 CMR 7.1, those tend to be more applicable for chronic noises, heavy traffic, industrial noise. I'm not sure if a rooster crowing intermittently would be able to trigger those requirements. So
in the past, this
Mhm.
has definitely been a chronic noise situation at an address across the street from Neck Hill Road.
Mhm.
And it obviously was affecting the residents' ability to get a good night's sleep, which we all know is important to our health. So I believe that was the direction that Tom has gone in the past with, citing that section. And again, I'd like to hear from Tom where he's, utilized that clause in the past. But again, we appreciate everything that you do for us and all the information that you bring to us. So I if Tom wants to comment, I'd like to give him that opportunity now. Thank you.
Oh, sure, Alan. Yeah. So with regard to utilization of the nuisance guideline that every Board of Health has the opportunity to utilize, it does have to be a case where in the eyes of the board, that the nuisance is actually creating a detriment to the health and welfare of the public. Yes, it is kind of a broad statement, but the issue that we dealt with or applied it to before was a case where it was a pretty constant and regular happening, where it affected quite a few people in the neighborhood and affected what I would say is there would be a good quality of life. So that's how, that's why it was applied in that case. Whether or not we could apply that in this case would remain to be seen. We have to, in my view, have to see the evidence of a consistent, ongoing harm to the health and welfare, of the community or of the neighborhood, rather. I don't know what we're hearing so far. It sounds like this may not rise to the same level of a problem that happened at the other household, which is actually across the street from this one. So the hope would be that with what's been done so far, the people will respond positively to the engagement that you had, Dan, and to what is going to be the expectation come the 20th of this month. And that we'll be able to kind of not have to, do anything further. However, that does kind of raise the question as to whether or not should the Board of Health entertain an actual regulation with regard to roosters. I guess that would be another general discussion, and that we have to kind of have amongst ourselves. So,
Joyce?
Yeah, well, no, Tom said basically what I was gonna say, so no point in rehashing that.
I do have one question, Dan, in your experience with the, specifically with regard to rooster regulations. Are you seeing that these regulations typically or routinely would be created through the local Board of Health in the community? Or would it be more related to an agricultural element within the community?
It would typically be the Board of Health. There is a section within that same chapter, chapter 111, section 125A, which is a provision that states that in a town that's large enough to have an agricultural commission, there is a role that that commission would play in the adoption of any regulations that could impact agricultural events. That indicates that they have a role in reviewing and commenting on the regulation, but the authority that enacts it is always going to be the Board of Health.
Okay, and I know in the past on this issue, we do have an agricultural commission in our town, as we are an agricultural-based community. And, you know, they had come to our assistance with the first issue as well. And so we've had discussions with them, and they're the ones that actually presented a nice little context for what we've kind of put forth for these folks with regard to how it was felt that they could mitigate, you know, the problem. So. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think the way it stands is, Dan, we'd be more than interested in reviewing any information that you can put in front of us. And, you know, then we can decide which direction we want to go in. So that, you know, maybe we can have something that's not too restrictive, but something that we can use as these situations seem to be more and more frequent, unfortunately. So again, thank you very much for everything you do for us. And we look forward to being able to put our eyes on any information you can provide us with. Does anybody else want to comment on this topic? All right, I think we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then. We're going to turn it over to our town engineer, Tom Ryder, and we're working on well regulations. And it's possible that we have a couple of guests in the audience. So Tom Ryder, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, good evening. So I was working on the items that we were addressing at last meeting. And it still needs to be tweaked quite a bit, but I thought I just wanted, so I sent over this evening an update. Jack, I'm not sure if you saw that.
I can pull it up now. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah. Which still needs to be tweaked, but I thought there was a few questions that we came up with last meeting that maybe a well driller could give some insight to, and you know, maybe answer how they performed some of the yield testing, and basically realistically how to get the testing done so that enough quantity of water is going to be produced for the well. So do we have anybody from a well driller?
I don't know if you can hear me, but this is Eli Richardson from Richardson Wells.
Hey, Eli. Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
So I wasn't involved in the last meeting. I just kind of got notification of this tonight. So what was the question regarding the quantity?
So right now, a lot of the regulations in the surrounding towns and the Mendon regulations are pretty much, you go to the site, you drill your well, and then you start doing trying to figure out the yield.
Yep.
Pumping, somewhere between 4 and 8 hours a day, throughout the day.
Yep.
So for Mendon, it looks like we have a 5 gallon per minute over 4 hours, and then an 85%
Recovery.
recovery over 24 hours.
Yep.
So, so just questioning on is how do we ensure, like, I mean, that data gets to us and that, how are you doing it for other towns? Because every town may have a little bit different, which might be a little bit annoying.
Right.
For you as well.
Right. So you basically, I mean, when you drill the well, when you obtain water, unless you hydrofrac, I mean, if you obtain water, you can pretty much take the depth of the well, which is your storage, combined with the amount of water that you hit while you were drilling, and you'll know if that's going to make the yield test. So then you do your 4-hour test. So the standard is you want 1,200 gallons within a 24-hour period. So you pump it 5 gallons a minute for 4 hours, at least 5 gallons a minute for 4 hours. So if you have a marginal well, you want to make sure you only pump that 4 hours, add that 5 gallons a minute, and then hopefully the recovery comes back to 85%. But if your well is making plenty of water, I mean, we typically, we'll pump it at a higher rate for longer periods of time because we have to get that quality, the chlorine to go down through and chlorinate the well. So we like
So
to
you
pump
may
as
pump
much
it
as we
like
can.
10 gallons a minute.
Yep.
And then hopefully that averages to hopefully it's still pumping at the end of 4 hours.
Right. So the only time you run into an issue is if you have like a real deep well that doesn't make a lot of water, and you got to get the pump all the way down so you can get all the quantity you can out of that well. That's where the issues come in, I think.
And then so after you finish your 4-hour test, you measure down.
Yeah. You got a sonar, and tells you where the static level is at that point.
Yeah. So
and then, depending on where we are in the area, if we're not too far away working, we'll stop back like an hour later, see where it is, see if it recovered, which a lot of wells do. If the well doesn't make a lot of water, then we'll come back the next day, 24 hours later, and see where it's at.
Okay. On the well driller's report, that it doesn't look like it's listed there. So how do you indicate to the board that
as far as what the
that
actual
the 85%
well makes?
is that the 85% is recovered?
Right. So you got to do your calculation. If you have 100-foot well and you got your static levels at 10 feet, it's got to get close to like 20 feet recovery by the time you get back 24 hours later. Some towns do. Go ahead.
Yep. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yep. No, some towns do require like the agent to be there, and he'll stay there that extra hour and see what the recovery is and all that good stuff. But it's obviously time and money for everybody. But there is one town around that does do that.
Yeah, and I used to work in another town, and yes, we were out there all the time.
Yep.
And back the next day, and there are some towns that do.
Yep.
Yeah, just
they keep their own log. They have their own logs, which they keep track of.
Yeah. I just trying to figure out the best use of time too. So if there are wells that are having trouble in town or locations in town that are having trouble, that's one thing. But just getting the data. So how do you submit the data for the next day? So you go back out and you record it, and then you put it onto your well driller's report.
Right. You get the pump test on the report. The state report has a pump test on there, and we have to fill in that those lines.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to find out where it is. I'm thinking maybe as part of our, the well permit application, maybe we can add that just so that we can record it, because sometimes on the well driller's report, I'm not sure if I see that sometimes it, I mean, not saying from you, but sometimes I just don't see that information come through.
Right.
Okay. All right. The other question I had is regarding plans. Say like you have a have a well that needs to be fixed, and maybe it needs a new well. It's gone dry or something. Do you guys have a selection of engineers, sanitarians, or PLSs that provide you support in locating wells, locating
Well,
proposed wells?
we don't. It's generally up to the individual, you know, or the builder. Obviously, if it's a builder, he's already got an engineer involved. But if we go out to a house that needs a new well, we tell, you know, I'm not sure if your town required it or whatnot, but in different towns, you know, if they do require it to be staked by an engineer, then they have to show their plot plan or hire an engineer to come out and do it and show
Yeah.
exactly where it's going, you know.
All right, in the absence of an engineer staking it, how do you guys determine
Well, you
the
gotta stay your
location of the
distances
well?
away from, yeah, you gotta stay your distances away from septic systems, lot lines, buildings. You know, there are, I believe, the state standards, you know, roadways, all that. And as long as you've got those distances, you can get the rig in there. That's where you go.
I haven't seen too much of an issue on that. It seems to be, it must be getting staked, or at least the well drillers must have some experience with survey locations.
Right.
You know,
Like I said,
to,
you just gotta keep your distances, the
Yeah.
distances away pretty much from septics and lot lines is the biggest things, you know.
yeah. Because we have come across at least one well that's gone dry, and the well driller wants to drill another well, but the question is, it's got to be, located, offsets, and they're afraid to do the drill because they don't have, they don't know if they're going to be next to a septic system.
So they didn't locate the septic systems around. They can't locate
Yeah,
them.
so the homeowner's got to get an engineer, but I didn't know if you guys had access to engineers as well.
No, like I said, typically when it comes to that, you know, we tell the homeowner they have to hire one, and we'll drill it where they stake it.
How about geothermal wells?
Yeah.
You guys,
What about 'em?
so are you guys installing those too? Is that or is that another specialty?
We were doing a lot. We haven't done many in the probably last 4 or 5 years.
Okay. We're looking at adding that at least to the reference it in the private well regs, using the guidance that the DEP
Yeah.
has, which goes back about 12 years. So, and adding that to but I didn't know whether well drillers are selling these, or is it a specialty from another,
I mean, well drillers will do geothermal wells. You're talking the closed loop, obviously, or just like an open loop geothermal well,
either,
or both.
just,
Either,
both,
Yeah.
So
like I said, there was a big demand for it probably 10, 15 years ago, or 10 years ago. But we haven't done much of them lately. But, you know, there are different regulations, I believe, for the closed loop and versus the open loop. As far
Right,
as
yeah.
distances away and stuff, you know, like if you do closed loop, you have to say 25 feet, I think, from between each well. And typically when you do closed loop, you have a series of wells, 2 to 3 wells.
Yeah, and some require the UIC program through the DEP.
Right. Yep.
And or if you're not using if you're not discharging back into the well,
Right.
then you don't have to, right? Okay.
Right. Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of paperwork there. I remember that.
Okay. All right.
Probably why we shy away from 'em.
Yeah, so every once in a while, we are getting a question on them, and it needs to be processed somehow. So
Right.
sometimes it
Yep.
peters out a little bit. I'm gonna ask the board, do you guys have any questions too you wanna ask for the maybe sampling protocol? Well, quality sample protocol. You do your 4-hour or 8-hour test, pump test, and then you sample, or do you wait until there's some stability? Do you use like a meter that determines the stability of the pH and conductivity and stuff, or do you just
No, we typically sample at the end of the pump test. As long as there's no more chlorine residue, we generally sample.
all right? So you do a test for chlorine residual.
Correct.
All right. So speaking of the chlorine, so you drill your well and you determine that there's a location where it seems like it's going to be adequate. Is that when you add your chlorine and then you wait?
Yeah, generally when we put the pump in, we chlorinate after that, so the whole pump system's chlorinated.
So before you do the pump test.
Before we do the pump test, but after the pump's in, we don't chlorinate before the pump's in. We put the pump in, then we chlorinate, then we just start the pump test.
All right, so you don't wait an hour or 2 hours?
Most of the time we put the pump in one day and then pump it the next. Some days, yeah, I mean, we pump it right away. It all depends on what we got going on.
Okay.
Tom Fickner?
Hi, Eli. Thanks for joining in on the discussion tonight. Much appreciated.
Yep, thank you.
I would just ask, just kind of in general, you folks been out there, quite a bit. You have a lot of experience in doing the work. How do you see the current guidelines that you've experienced here in Mendon in comparison to other communities out there with regard to well regulations?
I mean, I think they're pretty decent. I mean, you guys do a pretty wide range of quality testing. I believe in your regulations, you do require filtration for the homeowner if there is anything out of range. Some of the other towns, they start adopting all these regulations that actually apply more to public water supply, and they put a lot of burden on the people. So that hasn't happened in Mendon, and I hope it doesn't, because everything does take time and money. But I'm not sure if there's been an issue in Mendon or not, but I'm one of those kind of people, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
We do see a lot of iron and manganese. There's New England. And from time to time ahead of coliform bacteria, but usually that's before they move in, and we resample. And oftentimes the iron and manganese still comes up high. One of the items that we wanted to add is the the well driller goes out there, they do their test, and then it comes back, and then before occupancy, that they do another test at the kitchen tap. And then hopefully that comes back clean. And if it doesn't, say if it's an iron and manganese, then they have to look at putting a filter and put in a deed notice. That's one of the thoughts. And hopefully it's only something like iron, if anything. Other than that, then you're dealing with a lot more maintenance in operation that the new owner is going to have to be aware of. So, but as far as yield and stuff like that, I think I've only, in Mendon, I've only seen one well have an issue. It might have been a
Yep.
shallow well
Yeah,
too.
you got a pretty good area of New England. You got some water there.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Just how deep?
Eli, in your experience with particularly the residential work that you do, the most recent concern that's starting to come forward is the existence of PFAS
Yep.
in the water. What's been your experience? Have you been actively involved in wells or seeing that kind of rear its head as a concern in any particular communities residentially with regard to the level of PFAS in a water source?
No, I haven't seen anything as far as bedrock wells. I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe that most of the PFAS are like town wells, which are gravel packs, stuff like that. I believe it gets into those water sources easier. Because I haven't
Okay.
really come across anything, but people are just starting to test for it now too, so.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's all I had at this point. Thank you, Eli.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
last time I spoke with DEP regarding private wells, yeah, they were like talking about they're going to put some guidance out. That may have been last spring.
Mhm.
And they're the mentality at that time, just hold off on it. We have some PFAS guidance coming up. We're still investigating some areas, and there's some areas that we expect to see PFAS and there's not, and other areas where they shouldn't be any, and there is. So they're scratching their heads a little bit on it too. I mean, they know where it comes from, but how does it get there? How it gets into the water?
Right.
Yeah.
Alan?
Yes, Eli, thank you very much for helping us out here. It's always nice to hear from somebody who's out in the field and does this every day, especially for the number of years that you've done this. Two things. Town of Mendon does require a registered plan for the location of a well.
Yep.
And the other question is there anything that we as the Board of Health can do to make your job more efficient?
Not that I can think of off the very top of my head. No, nothing that I can think of right off the top of my head. But if I think
Okay.
of something, I will definitely send you a letter.
Well, no, we appreciate it. I mean, our goal is, to be part of the team that gets this done. And obviously, good quality water is very important to our residents. And
Yep.
we want to make sure everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's, drilling a well or servicing wells in the town of Mendon. But on the other hand, we don't want to make it impossible for you guys to do what you need to do. We want to keep it fair and reasonable.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No. Thank you again. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a follow-up too. Considering, say when you do your testing and it comes back with a hit of whatever it may be,
Mhm.
is the well driller, and I'm not specific on you, maybe you do. Do you have a list of products that will help treat the water, or do you send them over to Culligan or some others, other facility?
No, we do sell filtration.
Okay. And so what's your range of filtration, like activated carbon, water softeners?
Yeah, water softeners, neutralizers, green sands, berm materials,
So off the
regular sediment
shelf?
filters. What's
So
that?
you like have off the shelf stuff
Yeah,
that
I
you?
mean, yeah, pretty much available. Yeah, we
And
install
then,
most of those. They're most commonly used filters. If it gets something extreme, then we might, tell them they have to investigate someone like radon. We don't do radon filters.
Yes, yeah, so radon is, yeah, that's still, I kind of scratched my head over the radon, because it's like an airborne.
Yep.
So the thought is like every 10,000 picocuries, you can release 1 atmosphere, and four is like the threshold, and so they figured like if 1 is released, that's your maximum level for water, but I'm not sure how it is for drinking itself.
Right,
but-
yeah, I think it's just, I think it's the release that's the effect of everybody. It's not the actual drinking, because it gets released when the water comes out of the faucet, because that's how
Right.
the radon systems work, the aerations to release the gas.
Right. So as far as that, so do you go to a chart or saying, okay, so we have some volatiles in the water, and so maybe it doesn't hit a threshold of unsafe, but it's still noticeable. So like you provide like activated carbon, or you tell them you should use an activated carbon unit, and here's the operation manual. This is how often you should clean it up, replace it. Is that what do you
Yeah, I
provide
mean,
them
when
with
we
a
put in a
list of guidance?
Yeah, I mean, when we put in the filters, we like to go over when the homeowner, like we tell the builders, when the people move in, they generally call us. We go out, we go over the system, what they have to do to maintain it and whatnot.
And you provide that service, or do you provide them a pamphlet of like places to go?
No, we generally go out, because I like to see the people, face to face, and kind of, it's a lot easier to explain than it is to just, oh, here's the paper and good luck.
Right.
So I like to explain to people and show them, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is, like the salt levels. This is where it should go down to. This is what you have to add. This is the type of salt you should use. The neutralizer has to be serviced, once a year, according to the water test, the level of the pH. So I like to go over it with
Yeah.
the people.
So that's verbal, but do they have something like a piece of
Well,
like
there's books that come with the units that we leave
Okay.
there.
and then you leave them there. Okay.
And Joyce? You're on mute.
I just wanted to go back to this is Joyce Gilmore. I just wanted to go back to the iron and manganese.
Mhm.
Do you recommend a filter for that as well?
If it's out of range, we recommend filters. Yep.
Right, because in this whole aquifer, I think iron and manganese is like top dog, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely in the bedrock. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So typically for iron and manganese, what do you recommend?
Depends on the levels. If it's both iron and manganese, typically you use a green sand, follow it up with a softener. If it's not much, if it's just like a little bit of iron, then the softener would take care of it itself.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so yeah, so we are going to add some stuff for the geothermal well sampling. We also have a definition of water supplies that are between private and public water supplies, so something like condo associations or something use. Our thoughts are to have excuse me, one well for each lot. But there are variance procedures. And it's just more, the rest of it's just cleanup work. So there is a sampler requirement for before the transfer of property, like in Title V. That needs to be submitted. So that needs, we need to get the word out, that as they're doing their Title V inspection, they should do a well sample well sample as well and submit to the Board of Health. Does anybody have anything else?
Tom Ryder, do you have any more questions for Eli?
I don't have any more. I don't have any more questions right now.
Board of Health, any questions for Eli?
Nope, thank you, Eli.
Yep, thank you.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Eli. Very much appreciate it.
All right, you guys have a good night.
You too.
Thank you for your time.
Thank-
Much appreciated.
Yep,
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Tom Ryder, do you want to do any more work this evening on the well regs, or do you want to pick it up at our next meeting?
I would pick it up at the next meeting. So a lot of good questions that were answered, explained a lot of information. It's good to see that the well drillers do know, the information on treatment a bit, so they're not just walking away from the homeowner. So they understand. Yes, and they need to continue it. So they get, it's obviously they get information on the quality and provide some sort of system that will work.
Right.
And as far as the well drilling, I'm kind of have mixed feelings about how much inspectional service needs to be overseen. In some cases, I think it needs to be done, and others, as long as the paperwork is coming in correctly. Other than that, I know from other boards of health that I used to work for, we were out there like the whole day, watching the water being pumped. But I don't think that's necessary all the time, but I leave that up to you guys to consider that as well.
I think we're fortunate that, for the most part, I believe there's 2 or 3 drillers that do most of the work in town. I believe the builders that build in town sort of stick with the same guy. The individual lots, I know I've found that a lot of times if it's a private citizen who bought a lot that's building a house, they reach out to their neighbors to see who drilled their well or how their well went, because it is something that you do blind. So I know that, myself 30 something years ago, that's what I did. And that's what I was advised to do, is find out, how your neighbors that drilled before you, what they encountered and who they used, so that you have, someone that's experienced with the area. So Mendon is probably still small enough that like I said, I think for the most part, there's 3 names that I see over and over again that work in town. So I'm going to say that probably works to our advantage, that it's the same guys, because, I'd like to believe they're going to do what they need to do. If not, they're not going to be granted permits to drill in town. It'll, if they're cutting corners, it'll catch up to us. It'll catch up to them fairly quick.
Right.
So, and it's also nice to hear that our regulations are reasonable, that, we're one opinion is that we're doing a pretty good job, for both the citizens and, the efficiency of getting the job done. That's it for me.
And the one concern I have is, the infrequent, fortunately, of wells that go dry. It seemed like I want to say, was it last summer when one of these wells went dry? And, people were kind of like, oh, what do we do? Well, you need to get a well driller out there and, the Board of Health will act quick. Just make sure you get your water. You need water. We're not gonna hold up this stuff, water. But where can I put the wells? Like, well, you need an engineer. Well, to make sure they can certify the location, because there's one thing, you don't want to drill a well and then find out that, hey, there was a cesspool there, next to it. And the well driller kind of is worried about their liability. What if we drill next to an old cesspool that we didn't know was there because we were not certified to do the registered plan? So my point is like, well, we have some record plans on file and you're going to test the water for quality. So there better be good quality water. We'll know it right away that there's, that the water quality is questionable, which made them feel more at ease. But they needed to get their civil engineer out there as well. So eventually they did so. They did get an engineer out there, but the well drillers don't have an engineer on staff or a registered sanitarian on staff to do this. So that's the part I struggle with. I want to make sure that we get it done efficiently, especially when somebody doesn't have water, but we need to protect the public health on the quality,
Call
No,
the choice.
Absolutely, Tom.
No, I agree. No, you're absolutely correct. I think the example you're referencing there, Tom, I believe it was actually Eli's company that did the well on that property too. And I believe that example, that was a shallow well, as I recall. That went dry. It was just the conditions of the summer were such that, it was unfortunate that happened. But we were able to expedite very quickly and, not hold anything up. I know it was tough to hear that they had to get an engineer to have that done. But, we've had in the past this issue where we've received information, handwritten things on documents, on pieces of paper, and it's tough to really go by that. So the board, I believe, did the right thing in setting forth the requirement for having a, confirmed engineered plan. That way, specifically everybody, including the abutters, can see exactly what's been laid out. It's been defined, it's certified, so there's no question. So it's, I know it's an expense, for sure, but yeah, that's the tough part.
But it's also a liability on the driller because they're certifying that they're meeting the regulations, and even with the variance from that is they still have a liability because they're picking out the spot. So they really do need that engineer to take on some of that liability.
Yeah,
just in case,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been making the changes, but I haven't gone through all of them, and I'm highlighting the changes that are being made. So maybe we can pick it up again at the next meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, that would be great. And at that point, I would say that, Jack, we're probably all going to need updated copies of the well regulations when we have our next meeting, if that would be possible.
Yep, you will have them.
All right, very good. Tom,
I'll have to give him more time.
Right.
To get him.
Tom Ryder, we, always your assistance is always appreciated, and your viewpoint is valued. So thank you for all that you do for us. I see Tom Fickner would like to comment, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you.
Yeah, just one general comment, Tom, and it's kind of derived from what Eli had indicated with regard to what he's seen recently versus the past with regard to geothermal work.
Yes.
From your, I found that to be rather interesting, given that it seems like, from a marketing perspective, it seems like there's been a big push on for geothermal. What has been your experience from the engineering side of things with what you deal with for geothermal?
So we saw two come up fairly quickly over the last 2 years. And I haven't really heard anything prior to that. So I thought there was, the last person we talked to who was proposing this closed loop well system, he made it sound like that he was willing to come in and talk to us, and there's this huge push. And then, I mean, he may have actually talked to us a couple of years ago. Was this before COVID? Maybe it was 3 years ago. And then suddenly we didn't hear from him. So what happened? Is he selling these systems? But he was interested in selling these closed loop systems, so that new wells didn't need to be dug, and it was a cheaper system. So
Okay, that's
other than that,
interesting.
I haven't heard. So one maybe this summer, and that last one. So
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Alan?
If that's it on this topic, and we're going to pick it up with the latest revisions at our next meeting, I would say that unless there's someone from the audience that would like to comment, we can move on to the next item. All right, so it looks as though we can let Tom Ryder go and get some rest or play hockey or whatever he wants to do. Thank you very much for dialing in and helping us get this job done.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you. Yep, there was some good hockey games over the last few days, huh?
Yes,
I
there
saw
were.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always fun to watch.
I think there was a football game over the weekend too. I'm not quite sure though, but
Yeah, it's kind of a
Oh,
scrimmage,
really?
kind of a scrimmage, I heard.
At least there was a lot of good food.
yeah.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you
thanks,
guys.
Tom.
All right,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
All right. We can move on to the trash contract update. Anybody that wants to comment on this, go ahead. Jump right in.
Yeah,
I believe it was you, Mr. Chairman, that wanted this on the agenda.
Yeah, I guess it was.
So you want to start?
All I can picture is, Oscar the Grouch coming out of the trash can right now.
We told him to stay home.
And one day that used to be a highlight of my day, many, many years ago. I guess I just want to kind of throw it out there to everybody, my fellow board members, in the Board of Health, office. I guess we're moving along and, awaiting, proposals. We've taken a little heat, about trying to, separate out the expense of the municipality. Have we received any feedback from the email that was drafted, Jack?
The only email that I received about it was from Ellen on behalf of the town library trustees.
Okay, and that was kind of, she kind of understood where we were going.
Yeah, she understood. She just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like going to be their responsibility, but still the Board of Health's responsibility for the trash administration of the part of it.
Okay, and I think my understanding, if I try to reason out how this all came about, and none of us were on the board back then, although Joyce, you might have been, I don't know. Way back, and again, I'm trying to mentally come up with a picture of what happened when. And my assumption, as risky as it is when the town or the Board of Health decided that trash was no longer going to be a town-wide function and paid for with taxpayer dollars, it was going to become a subscriber-based system orchestrated by the Board of Health. When those original specs were drawn up, they probably included all the municipal dumpsters because it was a town-wide program. And when it became subscriber-based, it probably wasn't thought of at the time that because they went to a subscriber-based system, that all those municipal dumpsters that were getting serviced, the accounting wasn't really getting taken care of correctly. They just knew that everybody in town, all the municipal offices, everybody but the school system needed trash service, and it was going to go from a taxpayer-based to a subscriber-based. So unintentionally, that's probably how this all began. And then the specs never really changed over all that time. And, 5 years ago, when we were reviewing the contract and we were deciding whether or not to stay with Republic or to move on, that's when it was discovered that the accounting for how trash was getting paid for wasn't entirely correct. And we needed to make an adjustment to be fair to the subscribers. So again, as I try to reason out how it all came about, that's the best that I can come up with, because none of us were there when that transaction took place. And we are where we are today, trying to, as I put it, bend the needle as close to right as we possibly can, and continue to provide what I feel is a very good valued system, and to keep it that way. However, we are aware that, the cost of labor, cost of fuel, the cost to incinerate our trash is all going up. And, we're entering a new 5-year plan. So there is going to be a bit more of an adjustment than what we're used to as far as the yearly increase goes. But I'm confident that we're still going to be able to give our subscribers a good value. So I'll turn it over to the other members of the board to tell me whether or not I'm full of trash or not.
No, never full of trash. I had raised my hand a moment ago, but I think you kind of looped back on it, Alan, as I noticed that we do still have one of our residents on the call. So I just wanted to make sure that he understands what it is the overall subject matter we're referring to, because the others that appear to be on the call are all internal, and we kind of know internally. So I would just ask, I see that Richard's still on the call. So Richard, are you understand what the board is currently talking about at the moment?
No.
Okay. So essentially, well, at the moment right now, we're looking at a new trash recycling contract that'll be coming up starting the 1st of July. And what had taken place some time back when we were actually reviewing the last contract, it dawned on the board that as part of the service that's provided in that contract, it not only includes the service that's provided to the residents at curbside, but it also includes the service that's provided to the municipality. So for example, all the trash that's picked up at the town hall, the highway department, parks department, library, etc., senior center, that's all incorporated into the trash collection in the contract. And it had dawned on us that the subscribers actually pay for all that. So what kind of came to light was the belief that, from our perspective, that, hey, there's an element here of cost that the subscribers shouldn't be picking up, because it's not a taxed based service for the whole entire town. We felt that it would be fair for the municipality itself, which services the whole town, to actually be paying for that portion of expense from that contract. Does that kind of explain it a little bit?
Yes, it does. Thanks. That
Okay,
clears it
sure.
up. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand now what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's kind of the discussion that's been coming up again. It kind of went on the back burner for a little bit when COVID came. That kind of took front and center for a lot of the, for the Board of Health. So now that we're kind of back looking at another contract, COVID's sort of behind us and we're back to kind of dealing with other things again. It's come back to light, and we're now formally getting into the point where we're going to be formally discussing it with the town leadership, if you will, on how best to address what we feel should be an adjustment on how this portion of the cost of the service should be handled. Whether that's, basically it's going to come down to a budgetary type of an issue, and there could be many different ways that could be handled. And so what ended up happening was there was some conversation about it, the concept, and it was communicated back to our board. And so we recently put out an email kind of explaining it to all the town heads of all the departments as to what conceptually we were looking at from our perspective and how we would like to address it moving forward. So that's kind of where this whole discussion kind of comes into play. So Alan, I'll toss it back to you. Or to Joyce. Joyce, you have a commentary on it?
No, you've said everything I would have said with gusto.
Richard, thank you very much for consistently paying attention to what the Board of Health is up to. And I'll just go a little further than Tom. Missy was very good and had a very good network. Missy was our former administrator, and she had a very good network along the world of Board of Health. And because of that, when different opportunities to buy services and sign contracts as a large group would come about, come before her, she would do her best to, take advantage of them. So we had a very good contract with Wheelabrator for a period of years to burn our trash. And because we were part of a multi-town group, we got a very good rate per ton. It does go up every year over the life of the contract, but currently it's probably about $25 a ton cheaper than what we would be paying market rate. So it's definitely beneficial for the town departments and for the Board of Health to continue to provide them with service. We just need to make sure that cost is accounted for properly. And, we have every intention of providing service just the way we have in the past. We just want to make sure that the shoulders that, bear the cost, that it's, you know, distributed fairly. And also using the same trash hauler, the same contractor, there are some perks within our contract. It's a 3-year contract with the option to renew for 2 years, 1 year at a time. So for our hazardous waste day, that is town-wide, they help us out. They provide a dumpster. A lot of times, if we have a town function, they will help us out and provide a dumpster. So they provide some scholarship money for our Mendon students that are, you know, graduating seniors. So these are all things that have been negotiated within the contract. And we're very fortunate that even though trash haulers have changed, not that they've changed much, we've always been able to work that into our contract for the better of the community as a whole, not just the people that subscribe to the service. So over the years, even though it went from a taxpayer townwide service to a subscriber paid subscriber service, the community has continued to benefit from it, and we have every intention of continuing that. And if you compare what our subscriber rate is to a private rate that a lot of other towns have gone to, where you know, they no longer provide a service, you hire whoever you want to hire that's licensed in town to pick up your trash curbside. We've been able to continue to provide a good value. So, you know, again, nothing really is going to change, other than we want to make sure that on the accounting side of things are taken care of appropriately. How do you find our trash service as far as the service that we provide and the cost of the service?
Excellent. I don't think we could find a better person that works for Javi. My wife and I walk a lot, and he stacks barrels up. Everything's clean when he leaves the area, so no complaints at all. But I guess what you're telling me is I can't bring my trash up to the municipal center anymore.
We're going to have you arrested if you do that.
Turn
Only
off the
under-
recording.
Only under the cover of darkness can you do that.
No, we find everything great, so thank you.
No, thank you for your support. You know, it's our goal to do the best we can for the community. And whenever there are issues, a lot of times it's someone who is filling in for Phil, who is our full-time gentleman. And, you know, we always do the best we can to, as quickly as possible, correct anything that might have gone wrong. A lot of times it's weather related, which we don't have a lot of control over. But
We have no control.
again, we do the best we can, and thank you very much for your support.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
We keep hearing that we're going to be getting barrels from Javi, like Hopedale did. Is that true, or?
I'll let one of my fellow members take that.
Well, so in the negotiation process that's currently underway right now, Richard, there are elements of the new contract that are being proposed. And it is expected that we're going to see changes from the current situation to what will start up as of July 1. For example, one of the element changes is that right now we do dual stream recycling. So for example, 1 week is, you know, paper, the next week is tin, plastic, that sort of thing. The format moving forward, we expect, is going to be a single stream recycling, so that everything will be combined together. So in a pickup, what we believe will still be a weekly situation, but I haven't yet brought up this particular topic with my fellow members yet, but that may be something that, based on a conversation I had, is it a possibility where recycling could go to every other week? Based on an example that was presented to me in another town that has a similar setup with E.L. Harvey. So that'll be one example of a change that we'll see. Another example, what's being talked about is the provision of containers or barrels as part of the new contract. E.L. Harvey has gone to an automated environment with their trucks, as you probably noticed. I'm not sure what kind of receptacles you use, Richard, at your house. Are they the kind that?
Yeah, we use a recyclable bin, and for the paper, it's a small container that we put out. We don't have much, only two of us here. And the toter is the other thing that he throws in, picks up with the, I'm gonna say forklift, but that's not the term to throw it in.
Sure, yep, the robotic arm that comes off
Yeah,
the truck.
yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. So those toters there, which I have a couple of those myself. I have a couple of 65-gallon ones. That's the ideal that E.L. Harvey would like to see residents have because it kind of aids in the pickup part of things at curbside. It's helps the driver, a little less labor involved there, where they can simply go to a case where they could pull up and take these toters and flip them up and put them into the truck without manual intervention. We still have, quite a few residents out there that have conventional barrels, 30-gallon or 45 that have to manually be emptied. So that's another change that will most likely be proposed and taken into account moving forward, where there could be a provision for that coming forward to all the residents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
we're satisfied. We're satisfied with the service we have now, but
yeah, it's been a great company. It's been a great relationship. We have overall, they do a very, very good job. The drive is fantastic. Feels great. We know on occasion sometimes when Phil is on vacation or there's a day off, we get a substitute driver comes in. Sometimes that can cause a little hiccup every now and then with somebody's pickup because they're not used to the route. Sometimes, and I know I'm a prime example, I get comfortable with knowing when Phil comes by my house. So sometimes I kind of cheat, and I know that if I get him out there by 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm safe.
yeah, I
But
agree.
if Phil's not the driver, a replacement driver for the day isn't going to do the route exactly the way Phil has always done it. So I've been caught with my quote unquote pants down a couple of times where this other guy's come along at 8 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't Phil in the truck. I guess I missed my pickup till next week. So that's why we asked that everybody put them out by 7 a.m. because that sort of thing can happen. Where you can kind of get used to a certain time, and every now and then you have a little hiccup. But yeah, overall, we're very thrilled with E.L. Harvey, and we hope that we can continue the relationship, and whatever comes forward that the board comes to terms with, it's going to still be a great benefit for the town, and still at a great cost as well. I mean, a good expense package as well. So,
Well, Tom, thank you. Let me help you out. Phil's on
Okay.
vacation the end of March.
Say it again.
Phil is going to be on vacation the end of March.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
prepared.
Okay. I'm forewarned.
So get your stuff together.
Exactly. Get my what together, Joyce, right?
Well, I said stuff.
Exactly. Thanks, Richard. Back to
All
you.
right, so, we've got a few pieces of information in front of us. We've got a little, some numbers to crunch and to see, where that puts us. The nice thing is the way we have it set up, or the way our board members before us had it set up with a 3-year with the option to renew for 2, is, once we settle and decide, what the numbers are gonna be between, with no negotiations, we've got a pretty good handle on things for the next 5 years. So that gives us a little bit of a rest on the trash side, because we know what the next year is going to be, and the next year is going to be. The only thing that I think we need to be is going to be a little hard to calculate is, I believe, the recycling part of it. Last time we did the contract, we paid that extra $13,000 a year or whatever it was, to guarantee that expense. This time around, I didn't even see that as an option to have a fixed amount. So I don't know if we want to mention that and see if that even is an option, because that gave us that gave us a fixed expense. I believe we were quoted, I don't know, maybe was it $110 a ton for recycling? Again, I haven't sat down and really scrutinized some of those numbers, but at a, we have an idea. I think it was it 55 tons? The number that was kind of thrown out.
455.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
And it was 110 per ton.
okay. So
Correct.
if we're gonna have to factor that in to our expense, that's gonna push the numbers up,
Yeah.
Right.
right? 400, was that 455 tons a year?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had, as a notation about current rate was free. I had recycling of 455 tons. But then there was a proposal because of the changes in the recycling environment. Really, that's what's really kind of driving this now. They get to that number of 110 per ton revenue.
Right. That's how we came up with that 50,000 versus we were paying 13,000.
Right.
Along with, we can't forget that $4,000 annual administration fee.
Yeah, Kelly Ryan,
Right.
the processing. Yeah.
So all those things are gonna
Add up.
right. So I would say for the next meeting, we probably all need to review some of those proposed numbers and maybe come up with our own proposal individually, and then talk about it as a group
Right.
as to where we want to be. So that, we know, everybody knows it's going to go up, but we want it to go up at a palatable amount. There's a good size difference between 13,000 a year and 50,000 a year.
All right.
Mhm.
I mean, it's kind of crazy that it's going to cost us money to recycle. It's cheaper to throw it away, even though we know it's bad for the environment, because $77 a ton, which I believe is our next year's incinerator fee, versus $110 a ton, it's a lot of dough.
Mhm.
455 ton.
And typically the way that the contract format has gone is typically built into that initial 3-year is an automatic 3% increase each of those 3 years. So the base year, starting out year 1, compared to say this year, I'm sure we're expecting a sizable difference, but then each year thereafter, there'll be an additional increase. And
Right, and this fee to pay to dispose of the recycling is variable. So that,
Yeah.
that number, that 50,500 could go up, could go down, could stay the same. We need to make sure that we protect ourselves. If not, we're gonna be going back to the town at the end of the year saying we need money.
Well, it's kind of a catch-22 now, or what will be moving forward, because now, which is going to work out better? And I'll play devil's advocate on this one. Is it going to be better for our residents to throw it in the trash tonnage, or to be good stewards and keep it in the recycling side? Now, because now we have a cost factor for both elements, right?
But isn't recycling a state mandate?
Yes.
Yes.
So that kind of answers the question. We have no choice but to have a recycling program.
Recycling program, right, exactly.
Oh, no, I
And-
agree.
and-
We have to definitely have the program. I'm referring to something that's probably outside of our control. I'm talking about the curbside piece of it, that we like to hope that the residents will do the right thing. And what's, great concept for the environment, put out as much recyclables, clean recyclables as they can, versus putting it into the trash. But,
And no textiles.
no textiles, that's right. That's a new element that
Right.
came forward this past November
In November,
1st. So
yeah.
Richard, I don't know if you were aware of that, but there's now a ban on textiles in the waste stream. So all textiles are supposed to be disposed of in a different way.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, so again, I think that folks in our town pretty conscious of that, and I think do a pretty good job. I would always say the one element that I think we probably have to maybe throw a reminder out every now and then is just make sure the recyclables are clean, because it's the contamination element now is such a sensitive thing with the loads. It doesn't take as much anymore to reject a load as it once did, right? Because the testing is a little
Right.
bit less, so the allowance rather. So other than that, but I think we do a pretty good job at putting recycles out.
Jack,
Curbside.
if it's possible, Jack, could you pull maybe the last 3 years recycling tonnage, if that number's available? I'd be curious as to how close it is to that 455. Because I believe that our tonnage during COVID for trash went up. People were home. They were,
Right, yeah.
so they were generating more trash. Maybe they were ambitious in doing, purging their home of things that they were collecting and not using. But I wouldn't want to rely on just 1 year's tonnage for recycling, even though we were paying a fixed rate. For us to formulate calculations now that it's going to be $110 a ton expense.
The wind waste innovations bill that I get monthly for the tonnage being disposed of does not break it out trash versus recycling.
Okay.
I do have tonnage amounts, but not broken out.
All right. I wonder if now that's a number that Mike was able to provide us with, that 455. I wonder if E.L. Harvey has that tonnage information.
Okay, I'll ask.
Yeah. And like I said, if we could get it for at least a 3-year period, and we'll have to take into account, the fact that people were spending a lot more time at home for a period of that 3 years. But I don't want to use just 1 year for us to try to calculate forward.
Agreed.
We need to have a more reliable average to make that calculation. And then again, the other thing to inquire is there a fixed rate option like we had the last time? It's not gonna be $13,000.
Yeah,
but-
and it probably can't be a fixed rate because where there's so much, so many things that are different with the recycling, like, that we're not sending stuff to China, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. We can't there's no places, it's getting crazy about that.
Right.
So, I mean, they probably couldn't.
I remember it wasn't that long ago. I know I've been on the board. I'm in my 9th year. I remember we used to get checks for cardboard.
Yeah,
That's right.
And it was a few $1,000s a year
yeah,
Yep.
that we would, we were getting back. And that long gone.
right.
It's kind of interesting how the world of trash has changed. And I mean, I understand the reason to go fully automated. They probably save a lot of money on the workman's comp insurance for these drivers because there's not a risk of getting out of the truck. I mean, how many times have we heard of a driver getting run
Right.
over
Yeah,
by their
Mhm.
truck? There's not a lifting risk. I mean, those are huge.
Their back injuries, yeah,
Right, those are huge on the workman's comp rates.
right, yeah,
Also, it probably speeds the process up. I mean, we're very fortunate that Mendon is the size it is, but we have added new neighborhoods. So
Right.
that makes the day a little longer, which adds to the cost. The other thing is, any of these trash companies are in the business of doing the trucking of the trash. So all those transportation expenses, the cost of the truck, the maintenance, the fuel. I know, Tom, you were talking about maybe the ability to go where it's going to be single stream recycling to every other week. I believe if the truck still has to make the route, there's no cost savings in going every other week
True. Yeah.
because we have a split body truck.
Yep.
So it's the truck is going down the road regardless. And I would imagine in a split body truck, if you went down the road with one side of the truck full and the other side of the truck empty, it's not good for the truck.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm giving you just my small bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
Especially where I'm sure the side of the truck that holds the trash is a larger compartment than the other side of the truck,
Mm-hmm.
the recycling side.
Yeah.
So, not good for the suspension, not good for the driver. The weight has to be equally distributed. So I would assume that, that there's definitely a benefit to filling both compartments of that truck
Right.
when it goes up and down the road.
Yeah,
And personally, I even though the recycling is going single stream, if I'm filling my bin, I just assume get rid of it every week,
True.
so that I can fill it again. No one wants to leave, trash hanging around. I'm sure most of us are making a mad dash through the house on, it just happens my day's Wednesday. So Tuesday night, I'm making sure that I get everything out because it's going to be another week,
right,
before I can make sure that all the trash is off my property, so to speak.
Well, one of the conceptual changes that we may be looking at would have to do with the size of the recyclable containers. So right now, I think the average resident uses the small little low-profile bins, the open bins, to put their recyclables in. And what we may be looking at being proposed is an actual flip-top 65, possibly 95-gallon recycle bin. So what that would essentially do is it would give a homeowner, if we were to go along with that, it would give a homeowner a larger storage capacity to put the recycles in, and potentially they could sustain not having to put it at curbside for a couple of weeks because it would they have much more storage capability.
Right.
Yeah, didn't think of that. I think that I would like to see, just my opinion, I would like to see the toters different size.
Mhm.
I would like to see the larger toter as close to what our gallon capacity is now. For trash, and a slightly smaller one for recycling.
Mhm.
Just my view of what I see out there is I see less recycling in comparison to trash.
Right.
And if right now the program allows for 4 30-gallon containers, that's 120 gallons before they have to buy a sticker for a bag.
Mhm.
I would like to see the trash toter be as close to that gallon volume as possible, so that we're allowing for the same amount of trash. And by having the different sizes, I think it would help differentiate the two commodities. And I wouldn't want to give people the opportunity to have an overage of trash and decide that they were just going to put it in the top of the
Recycling.
recycling bin.
Yeah, because that's
I
gonna
mean,
make that a
You know,
problem.
in a pinch, someone might just get frustrated and say, I can't put it in this one, but I can put it in that one. And now we got bad recycling.
Well, I will say,
Either that, or if he sees it that way, they will leave it. But maybe because he doesn't get out of the truck, he might not actually see that, I guess. Yeah.
so
Well,
I will say this could be a good opportunity to segue to something that actually came up today, since we're talking trash overall and an example of a curbside situation. I had a resident reach out. Today was a trash pickup day for them, and they typically put out 2 45-gallon barrels for the trash. Every now and then they'll put out, along with that, they'll put out a 31-gallon, round metal, with a cover removable, right? Today was one of those days. They been doing some cleaning out, so they had 2 45 plastic ones with the attached lids. They weren't the type that the truck could pick it up. It was an older type barrel, so they'd have to be manually emptied by the driver. And what the resident had informed me was, for whatever reason, and I'll defer to Jack at the end of this to see if we have an update, but the driver had apparently not taken anything that was in the 31-gallon barrel, and for whatever reason left behind one bag that was in one of the 45-gallon barrels. So in talking with the resident and taking into account what they put out with 2 45s and a 30, that still kind of is within the guideline that we have for an allowance of basically 120 gallons of trash. We kind of phrase it in terms of 4 30-gallon, and I think the term that we use on our website is bags, but in talking with Jack about it earlier, I equate a 30-gallon, a better term might be receptacle. So whether it's a 30-gallon bag or whether it's a 30-gallon plastic trash barrel or metal trash barrel, that's still one of the 4. So I couldn't understand why in this particular situation, they didn't take anything out of the 31, left it in completely, and then left a bag behind in one of the 45s. And this situation had cropped up about a month ago or so with another resident. And so with that, I'll kind of defer to Jack to see if you had any feedback from E.L. Harvey, Jack, on that situation.
No, I did reach out to my rep Cliff and Heather. I have not received a response from them.
Okay.
Do you think it had to do with weight?
Well, he sent me some pictures, which I had forwarded off to Jack. Basically, the resident sent pictures of the receptacles that he uses, and he showed picture of what was inside the metal smaller barrel, 31 gallon. And all of his waste, from what he had said, is in typically a 13 gallon kitchen bags, the white kitchen bags. So it
Right.
wasn't like it was loose trash. It was all bagged. So it was kind of puzzling as to why in that scenario. And the other thing was they left behind, E.L. Harvey has a form. So when they don't pick up trash for some reason, they leave a sticker
Right.
behind that says why. And I sent the resident sent me a picture of that, which I sent Jack's putting up the pictures now. The reason why it said it didn't pick it up was because over the limit. And I couldn't understand why this particular scenario was over the limit. So the thought occurred in discussing with Jack earlier is for some reason, well, first thing I thought was, was it actually our regular driver? I don't know if it was or not. But B, are they counting bags when they have to empty out barrels? And are they interpreting 4 bags literally as 4 bags? Because you could technically put 2 or 3 bags in a barrel.
Right,
So it's
especially
just-
when they're kitchen bags.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, aren't most kitchen bags like 13 gallons, I think?
Oh, yeah, that's your
15
average.
gallons?
Yeah, 13 gallon bags, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's just a
Yeah, I
kind of
don't
a
know.
puzzling situation, so hopefully we'll see what comes back from E.L. Harvey on it, but that was, I thought I'd
All right.
incorporate that into the discussion, but
yeah.
Might have been weight.
interesting-
It might have been weight.
Interesting that, we're having this conversation. I was in Milford today, near Milford Medical Center. And E.L. Harvey has the contract. And the trucks that they use are front loaders. So they've got like a dumpster in the front of the truck at the front bumper.
yeah.
And they've got the hydraulic arm.
Mhm.
And I was watching this driver pick up trash bags with the hydraulic arm and putting them in the front loader. And he was pretty good. He definitely had played video games as a kid. But I had never seen a driver quite that skilled that can, pick up
Right.
most trash bags with the arm. And Milford, I don't think has a limit period.
Mhm.
And they generate a lot of trash.
Right.
Now, to your point, Joyce, when you mentioned waste, now what are you referencing specifically with that term?
I said weight.
Oh, sorry, weight. Oh, the weight of
Weight,
it.
yeah.
Oh, heaviness.
Right.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we call it 30 gallons, 50-pound max.
50 pound per barrel. Yep. So if you had something,
Obviously,
Maybe if they had something in there that was overweight or,
okay.
I don't know. That'd be the only thing that I could think of.
Yeah. No, that's a point. Yeah. Well, we'll see what comes back from them for the reasoning, but
yeah,
Because
sometimes they have.
oh, sorry.
That's okay. Sometimes I have seen, depending upon the trash, the contents, I've seen a bag stick in the bottom of a Toda. So maybe that's, or the bag gets wedged in the Toda and doesn't come out, the bag on the bottom.
All right.
So when he puts it back down, he doesn't know that there's still something in it. Or maybe that metal container, like Joyce mentioned, was over 50 pounds.
well, he did say he had been doing a clean out, so it's quite possible maybe that one
Right.
had, and because it was a metal one, maybe they got a little liberal with the weight.
It's
Right.
possible. I'm
Yeah.
sure that 50 pounds is, just like someone who ships a package.
Hmm.
Oh, if you're going to ship it, it has to be under a certain weight so that the driver can carry it, or
Right.
you end up going truck ship, which costs more money.
But I will say that 50 pounds is a lot of weight.
It's a considerable sum when you're picking it up off the ground.
Yeah. And just knowing this particular resident, if he had 50 pounds in there that he was picking up, I want to be on his physical training program.
Well, it depends where
I-
you're picking
I'm-
that weight up
pretty-
from.
I'm pretty sure that Phil was on today.
I believe so also. I
Yeah,
believe I saw him
yeah.
because
Okay.
Wednesday, my day.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we'll wait and see what comes back and,
Right.
because we know overall he does a very, very good job. He's very good with the residents and
Right.
goes a little extra, like Richard pointed out. He'll stack the things and so forth. So, yeah. No.
All right, so
since-
we need a little more information and we got to do some number crunching.
Mhm.
Like I say, I propose maybe we do a little bit individually on our own. And then do it as a group and try to figure out, where our comfort zone is. Based on some of the proposed numbers that we have. So that we can, keep the negotiations going.
Do we have an idea at this point, when we actually might see an actual draft of a contract from E.L. Harvey?
I don't believe so. We're still in the very beginning. So, we have the opportunity, definitely. I'm sure the boilerplate is gonna be very similar to the contract we have in hand. It's the numbers that are gonna change. And obviously, we want the, ability to, counter offer.
Yep.
Because, we realize, I mean, we're very realistic people. We live and work just like everybody else every day.
Yep.
We realize what the cost of things are doing. But we don't want to make any assumptions or leave any opportunities on the table as has been expressed. And we know there's probably, a limit to what is reasonable for that increase. And as you pointed out, Tom, we know that there's most likely a 3% adjustment every year. So we want to make sure that starting number
I'm at a meeting.
is as reasonable as possible.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think a part of that 3% automatic is simply because they have to deal with prevailing wage. And I think that's an element that's built into that element of contractual obligation that they're basically bound by
Oh, absolutely.
in their world of what they do. Yeah.
And, everything that they do, just like everything that we do, very rarely goes down,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So, it's, something that we deal with every aspect of our lives. But we want to, keep the value in the
Right.
program.
Right.
So,
I
like-
think that's very reasonable.
that's probably what, the approach we should take at this point.
Mhm.
And see where we, at our next meeting, where we come up when we put our heads together. Again, after we individually kind of figure those numbers out and make sense of them. And, again, we got to remember that $4,000 annual administrative
Kelly.
that
Yeah.
adds to every subscriber's cost.
Mhm.
It's always it's a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there. And when you add 10 of those numbers up, it adds up.
It does.
Well, we're kind of fortunate, I think, that because, with the quantity of subscribers we have a pretty good representation in the community that participates in the program. It's not 100%, but, I think I want to say we have roughly 1,850 households that participate out of a total number of about 2,200 households. So, there's still a number there that, don't participate. So of course, the more people that do, the better the number is for each household to share in the cost, right?
Of course. But we
Um,
have to remember our senior discounts.
Yep.
50%. We have to look at, it sounds as though we're still gonna be able to allow people to put out additional trash bags. But $2 a bag isn't gonna cut it anymore.
There's a consideration there where we may have to potentially look at a little fee increase for that.
Or maybe both, a fee increase and maybe a tighter limit at how many bags you can go beyond every week.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't remember if we have a current limit.
There is 4.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's total of eight curbside, 4 that are part of the program, and then 4 additional.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, you know, again, these are all things that individually we need to kind of have to think about and calculate in our head. So that when we get together at our next meeting, we'll all have our opinion already written down and we can blend everything together.
Hmm.
But those are all things that we have to kind of remember to consider.
Hmm.
I mean, that $2 a bag has been $2 a bag forever.
Yep. Yeah.
And when you think of if that bag is 50 pounds and a ton is 2,000, and now we're paying $77, a little more per ton to dispose of,
Yeah.
Right.
plus the trucking expense, which is going up,
Yeah.
you know, $2 a bag probably isn't a fair number anymore.
I know we had talked about this too and trying to get a number, and I don't know if you had that, Jack, roughly what we take in on stickers annually.
I think the number was about 10,000, wasn't it, Alan?
That's the way I remember it, but I can't say I've seen it in print. I think that was a discussion I may have had in the past with Missy.
Yeah, I think roughly, if I do remember, if I looked it up, I think I looked it up when I was working on the budget. I think we were at about $2,500 of additional revenue from the stickers alone.
How much?
2,500.
Okay.
That's in the current fiscal environment, Jack, in the current, where we're
Yeah,
now
July.
in?
Yeah, from July to February. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, 2,500. Okay.
So even on an annual basis this year, that's going to be a lot less than the 10 that I thought I had been told at one point for this particular year. Right now, if we base a 50-pound bag, we're coming in at $50 bag, a 50-pound bag at $2 a bag. We're coming in at about $80 a ton. So we're covering the tonnage cost at $2, but we're not covering the trucking cost.
Right.
So that definitely needs a modest increase, especially with, you know, some of the proposed numbers that we're looking at. You know, it might have to go to $3 a bag. I hate to think of it that way because that's a 50% increase.
Well, like I said, we've been at $2 for such a long, long time, you know.
Right. And I mean, you know, there's nothing that says that $3 might not cover us for the next 5 or 10 years.
Right.
But, you know, like I said, we're just covering the tonnage value at $2 a bag.
Right.
So, you know, we're not covering the trucking at all.
Right.
So, you know, we definitely need to make an increase, and, you know, unless we want to go $50, the next dollar is, you know, free. But again, you know, that could suffice for the next 5 to 10 years, you
Right.
know, and we wouldn't have to look at that particular thing again.
But you know, when you think about all the different price increases in the last 3 years,
Mhm.
I mean, it's outstanding.
Oh, I agreed. But, you know,
So why, what my point being though, so why would this be an exception? I mean, this has to increase at the same level. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah.
and it's a price
Yeah.
that we all have to,
Right, right.
we're all subject to it.
right,
We're all part of the program.
correct.
It's just that, unfortunately, every consumer is getting hit on all sides.
Correct.
It's a good
But,
thing. It's a good thing we're volunteers.
No kidding. The other thing is, I mean, you would like to think that people would be more conscientious too about their, the things that when they buy things, they're not buying them in, all these containers that are so, when they can buy them just in bulk or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Well, sometimes I'm sure circumstances like this may create better habits.
Right, exactly. One
I'm
hopes.
sure.
One hopes.
I'm sure back in the days, what was it, the late 70s, when we had gas lines and things like that, people thought a lot more about where they were going with their car. Not
Right,
because of the cost of gas, but because of the availability of it.
right.
So someone who didn't group their errands learned to group their errands.
Yeah.
So sometimes
Right.
these inconveniences or these expenses
Right.
help us form better habits.
Habits. Yep, I agree.
All right, I think we've exhausted that topic.
Well, I do have a little side note since we're on the trash topic about the situation at Inman Road. I did get an email this morning that trash is still being brought into Inman Road and being dumped. She doesn't currently have any video proof, but she just wanted to let us know that it's still occurring, and she will let us know when she does have video proof.
Okay, that would be great. Do we know if it's people other than the owner?
She didn't specify. She said she just witnessed the same white van that's been dumping at that property in the past.
Well, that definitely isn't the owner.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we were given assurances on the last time we
Right.
brought this up,
Right.
that was not
Wasn't
going to
that
happen
van-
again.
That van was registered in Milford, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. That
Yeah.
answers the question. All
So I
right.
just want to bring that up to the board's attention.
Thank you.
That's too bad. Anything else on trash talk?
Trash
Like,
talking.
It's like a radio show.
Yeah.
Good thing
Trash
Howard
talk.
Stern. Good thing Howard Stearns isn't doing it. All right. Next topic: Mendon Upton community cleanup discussion. Enlighten me, Jack.
Well, this was emailed out to the board last week,
Right.
Yes, and
but it was emailed to, I believe, a lot of department heads. But what does the Board of Health, this is my first time with this, but what does the Board of Health get involved with this? If anything.
Well, it could be wrong, and I don't know that we directly had any involvement per se, have we, Ellen?
I can't remember other than if maybe we were asked to assist with the advertising expense at one point, and I may be confusing this with other events.
No, you might be right there. We might have lent support budget-wise to Ann for something like that in the past. Yeah.
I did see a lot of people respond in email form that support this event. I believe the Lions, Custom Home Realty, trying to remember who else, that support this community effort. And they, pledge their continued support in the capacity that they've done in the past. But obviously, Jack, Ann hasn't reached out to the Board of Health directly yet.
No.
Okay.
Well, what we could do is we could, knowing that we're aware of this, that we've been made aware as part of a group kind of notification from Ann, go back to Ann and simply say, Ann, we definitely are in support of the community cleanup for sure. Is there anything specific that you might like to see the Board of Health assist you with.
Well, can
And
you
then-
see my screen?
I can.
right.
Yes, I can.
So I think it's an open-ended question to everybody. What might you be able to offer for this event?
Yeah.
Okay, any suggestions, ideas? Okay. So, well,
Is this one of the dumpsters E.L. Harvey provides? Well, no.
hmm,
I don't remember
good question.
exactly. Let me look at the list here. I have a feeling where highway is involved, Mendon Highway,
Hmm.
that they might go out and pick up the bags.
Gotcha.
Volunteers. So those bags probably end up in the highway barn dumpster. I might be making a bad assumption. I've done it before.
Typically, the way they've done it is they get, they have people come to, I don't know, if it's been at the Clef School, they kind of all go up, pick up the bags. They all have signed up for different streets that they want to take, responsibility for, and then they go up and down the streets, and I think they leave the bags behind, and then highway comes back around and picks them up, right?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Then if highway's bringing them back to highway, they're going in the highway dumpster.
Right.
So the dumpster's already provided
Right.
by the Board of Health.
Hmm.
So
At this point, it's by the Board of Health.
that's correct. And our generous subscribers.
Right.
So like I said, for some reason, I believe I know Ann has asked us in the past for advertising support. But I don't remember if it was for this event or not.
Mm.
And a year ago, the 3 board members were kind of trying to run the show because it was before we had Jack.
Right.
So it's a lot of that is still a blur in my
Well,
mind.
I know when I've done past meetings for you guys before I came on board, it was the mosquito tick flyer that Ann Mazar gave out to us,
Correct.
and that we paid for the advertising.
Right. But
Half of it, I believe.
I know there was more than one situation that we offered advertising support. I don't
Okay.
remember if this was the event or if it was something other above and beyond the tick and mosquito. I think the only way to track that down was to see if was an advertising expense paid to the town crier back last February, March.
Okay, I can do that.
When's the event? April?
April.
April 17th to May 1st.
All right, so I'm thinking the expense would have occurred February, March, or April at the latest of last year,
Okay.
because obviously the advertising would be prior to the event.
Right.
I don't know how quickly they would submit the bill, but I'm thinking they would submit it fairly quickly. They were a small operation. I mean, they did an awesome job.
All right, I can do that.
So they actually, the kickoff day is the 22nd, Saturday, the 22nd is the kickoff. But since COVID, we have been making the bags available over a period of time so people can pick a time that fits their schedule to do the cleanup. Do these dates work for you?
All right, Joyce, you're saying the kickoff is the 22nd, 22nd of March or April?
April, 22nd of April, which is Earth Day, and I believe.
Gotcha. Okay,
And, but the dates that they were looking at the dates from April 17th to May 1st.
gotcha.
But the kickoff date apparently.
Yeah,
is-
I think the reason I'm asking that is I'm trying to think of when that, if we
Right.
did support it, when that invoice may have come in.
Right.
The other thing is to ask Ann,
Right, that would help. She was on before,
Yeah.
but I think she got
Ian,
tired.
What did we do last year?
I think
Because
she got,
because
I
because
think she
last
got
year was
tired of the well regs.
there you go. Last year is still a blur in my mind.
Yeah, that goes back just, I think, simply just to reach back to Ann,
Right,
you know, say, hey, Ann, we're on board with the, you know, with the event. You know, we believe we've helped support financially with, you know, Flyer in the past possibly, but if you could confirm if that was the case, but irrespective, you know, we're open to any suggestions you might have that you think you might have a need for based on feedback that she's getting from other people. So she might, maybe at this point, maybe has gotten some feedback and she's creating a list and
Okay.
has some things that, okay, well, no one's signed up for this, or no one's offered this. We have a need here, need there, and maybe we could just be open to hearing what, you know, what needs do you think we can help fill?
Nope.
yeah,
Right.
you want me to call her?
Oh, there we go.
Sure, why not?
Yeah,
All right, I'll do that.
That'd
Cool.
be easier than making poor Jack hunt through every month.
there you go.
Because God knew,
All right,
I have
I'll
no
help
idea.
poor Jack.
Yeah, I have no idea during that period who was actually paying our bills. I just know the bills were getting paid.
I'll call her.
Thank you. So I guess we've kind of talked that one out. Any topics that people want to talk about, not reasonably anticipated?
Well, how much time do you have?
Uh-oh.
No,
Jack-
no.
Jack-
I was talking with Tom,
Yeah,
and like to keep you guys abreast of like what's been going on since during the last meeting. So I typed out some stuff that's been going on the last 2 weeks, so you guys are aware of what's going on at the Board of Health aspect. So I do have some topics that I want to discuss with you guys.
Jack, for you, we have an unlimited amount of time.
All
Yeah,
right.
that just, before you start, Jack, that came from, and so, Joyce might have just stepped away, but that came from the concept that we kind of got into a while back with Missy Allen, if you kind of remember. There was a period of time there where we found it was beneficial that because we met every couple of weeks or so, there were a lot of things that would happen during our meeting or between our meetings. And so it'd be kind of good if we could kind of, as an call it an FYI segment of a meeting, that, you know, basically we get a general rundown of different things that happened, you know, between meetings. So we had an idea, you know, not that everything has to come before the board, but so that's what Jack's alluding to. So I mentioned to Jack is, hey, it might be kind of nice to kind of kick that back up again. So as things crop up in between meetings, you know, you make a little note, you just kind of have a little FYI segment to the board, you know, at the end and say, oh, this happened or that happened and type of thing, you know?
No,
And
I
that's
think,
what
I think that's a great idea, and we've sort of talked about this at different times. Joyce might deal with something,
Right.
and it's all taken care of, but yet it might not circle back to everybody.
Right.
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 And that can be anyone, any one of us that answers a
Wait,
call or
which
answers
it-
a complaint.
Which I have actually done. If you wanted to hear what I circled around to. I was talking to Mary Watson and Hopedale because apparently they got a food, they were thinking they had a food
Inspector?
inspector, big word, right? So I did speak with her and it was Bill Fisher. Do you know Bill Fisher? Does anybody know Bill Fisher?
No.
I didn't know him, but he had done some work with them before and then he went to Milford and now he hasn't said that he would do it, but he was talking about it. So I said to her, well, let us know if in fact, maybe he'd be interested in doing our stuff as well. So that's my report on that.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
All right, so I've titled my little piece here FYI for BOH.
Wow.
First one up is Clean Harbors is scheduled for September 9th of this year for Hazardous Waste Day. But, and that is a big but, E.L. Harvey is not available that Saturday for our shredding day because it's a holiday. So my question is, do we want two separate dates for hazardous waste and shredding? Or do I try and get a different date for Clean Harbors that E.L. Harvey can do?
I would vote we should keep it the same, one date for both services, to be honest with you. I think that's easier for the resident.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree, but I don't want to lose Clean Harbors.
But maybe we should talk to them and see. They may not have realized it was a holiday either, you know?
That, you're right.
Good point.
You know?
Good point.
What holiday is it?
Labor Day is the week after, it's the Saturday after Labor Day.
Oh, okay.
And because since Monday was a holiday, E.L. Harvey's working that Saturday for the day delay of trash pickup.
Yeah, to make up for the Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next thing, COVID clinic vaccination. We have one scheduled for March 4th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Misco Hill School. That is being sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. I do have it posted on the town website, and I will be blasting it out via email and social media platforms.
Is that the fourth booster?
It's for initial booster, your second, not initial booster. The initial shot if you never had the COVID shot before. Your second shot if you only got the first shot, or a booster. They didn't specify what type of booster, but it does say booster.
Okay.
And it's the Moderna or Pfizer version.
Do we want to make sure that we contact Amy down at the senior center directly?
I can do that.
I don't think it would hurt. Thank you.
Yep. All right, the Green Teen Junk Recycling event. Remember we had Green Teen Junk on and the congressman on a
Yep.
couple of meetings ago.
Yeah.
We have it scheduled for Saturday, September 16th, also at Misco. But he asked me if it's going to be Hopedale and Mendon, but asked me if Upton can join in as well. If the Board of Health would have a problem with Upton having a 3-town instead of just 2-town event.
I personally think that would be great. Upton has
Sure.
been a reasonable partner whenever we've, done things. And it's in close proximity to the Upton line, the site that we've chosen. So it kind of makes sense for all 3 towns.
I
Okay.
don't know what this is about.
Oh, I'm sorry. And what was the date again, Jack? September?
September 16th.
Yep,
Okay.
Saturday, September 16th. That would be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
All right. And do we have clearance from the school?
I haven't talked with the school yet, but I wanted you to get your permission first before I say, all right, we're going to have 3 towns instead of 2.
Okay. Besides the school, I might run it by Chief Kersey. Just from a traffic perspective,
Okay.
see what his take is on it.
It may warrant a detail officer possibly.
Very possibly. I mean, when you think of the traffic that's generated by the school in the morning or in the afternoon. But I definitely, as a courtesy and a respect, I would want to run it by him
Okay.
and get his take on the situation.
Not a problem.
And you said that was from 9 to 1?
9 to 1. Next one is the 9
So we
Main.
should, before you
what
go
is
on, I think we need to explain to Joyce this event.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got you covered, Joyce, no worries.
Okay, thanks.
That must have been the Board of Health meeting that you couldn't log on until the last 10 minutes.
That's
Oh,
the one.
maybe.
Yeah, that's the one. Go ahead,
All right.
Jack.
So Green Team Junk Removal, they provide junk service removal for all towns surrounding Mendon. And what they do is they usually have a town event that's sponsored by National Grid, where they bring in all their junk at a cheap rate. I believe it was $15 per carload. Right now, they offer Mendon $75 for box spring and a mattress. But on that date, it's going to be $50 if they bring it themselves on that date. So it's free to the town. We pay for nothing. They do all the advertising and the mailings of the postcard. And that's pretty much it.
There were small fees for different items, different electronics, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, if they have like TVs, tires, there's like a $10 here, $15 there. I'll get the packet that we had out for the that board meeting back to you.
Yeah, and the nice thing, Joyce, was regardless of whether it's something that they recycle or not, if someone brings it in, they take it with them.
Oh, good,
Right.
They leave the site in better condition than when they showed up.
good.
The reason they have to have a per car fee is almost like with our hazardous waste day. There's a
Right.
set expense getting all the trucks and equipment and people there to set up for the event and then to break down and clean up from the event.
Mhm.
But Rep Murray, Brian Murray was on the call. So I believe Brian has encouraged this operation and has worked with this gentleman in the past.
And we
So-
promised Brian a very good role in this event, right? Right, Alan? Oh, maybe I did.
Yeah, and again, Joyce, it's almost like a trade day too, where National Grid makes sure they almost it sounded like they almost set up like a table or a booth, and people can get information on all the rebates that are available out there, for upgrading their
Right, yeah, yeah,
heating system, etc. So it's an opportunity for maybe someone who hasn't explored
Right.
an opportunity to do so, and maybe talk to someone that day.
right, good.
And
Okay.
I'm trying to think, there was it a dehumidifier? They were
Yes.
offering everybody, like, if you bring a dehumidifier in, they gave you so much money. And then if you didn't bring one in, you could still get a certain amount of money to buy a new one that was, obviously Energy Star rated and things. So there were all those little gimmies that go along with this.
Right,
So it sounded like a great opportunity.
yeah,
I would, Jack, too, you may want to just, if you haven't already factored it in, if this was going to be the date, just to include Brian's office, or Brian and he may want to personally be there as well for the event.
Sure.
Yeah, just to let him know, since he was part of the call and
Yep.
part of the push for kind of setting this up and establishing it. I want to at least let him know that, hey, this is what we're looking at for a date, and just want to keep you in the loop type of thing. So if you're interested in, kind of coming over and just kind of participating, Brian's has always been very great about that stuff, so.
Yep, not a problem. I can do that.
Yeah.
All right, next one is the 9 Main Street septic replacement status. I did reach out to the installer for a status update last Thursday. He's just waiting on Seth LaJoy, who's going to be the electrician for the alarm for the system. He was supposed to go out there this past Monday, and they're going to make an appointment with Steve Donatelli for the final inspection of the backfill. And the electrician is scheduled to be there at the end of this week. So it should be almost done within a couple of weeks for 9 Main Street.
I didn't hear what you said to begin with. What was it?
9 Main Street septic replacement
Oh.
status.
Oh, yeah, okay, now I know what you're talking, yeah,
All right.
I didn't hear that, no.
That's a piece of property that's been
Yes.
wide
I
open for a
know,
long
I
time,
know.
Joyce. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Finally,
go
we've got-
by it a lot. I
Yes.
say,
Yeah,
what is going on there?
Yeah.
I did notice they put a new roof on the building in the
okay.
last week or two. I noticed the roofing crew there, so things are definitely happening there.
Right,
Awesome.
All right, one of my little projects is working on Title V's that have been missing for the properties that have been transferred over the last year. I went back from December of 2021 up until last month and went one by one to all properties that were transferred. Out of the 231 properties during those 14 months, only 29 of those properties did not have a Title V on file with the Board of Health. So I did a letter up asking them either between current spouses that they don't need a Title V, between parents and children, between full siblings, or where the property is held in trust. Otherwise, they need to either call their bank, or if they have a copy, to mail it into the Board of Health. So far, I received like 5 Title V so far
Oh,
back
Good for
in.
you. That's
Good.
great.
Great.
So I'm just waiting to hear back from the rest of them. So those are
Good
coming in
job.
slowly.
Yeah, no, that's
Awesome.
fantastic, Jack.
Da-da-da-da-da. The housing issues. The property at 21 Milford Street. On 21 Milford Street, there was a trailer that was not permitted by the select board. Danielle did go out there on February 1st and was able to speak to the brother of the occupant that was living in the trailer. The brother does work at that property, and the property, I believe, is Zook.
Right.
They
Yeah.
they gave him permission to have the trailer there. But unfortunately, the trailer is hooked up to the septic system. And that septic system is already maxed out with the commercial building and the house behind it. So Danielle did speak with John Erickson, the Mendon's building commissioner, and John said per the town zoning bylaws, this would not be allowed, and he would be sending out a cease and desist letter. So I just want to keep you.
I did not see it there. So I'm assuming that it's gone.
What was the actual address again?
21 Milford Street.
Oh,
Zook's
Milford,
where
okay.
they have they do the beautiful cabinetry and stuff there.
Yes.
That's in the front.
Yeah,
but
going down the
I-
hill there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went by and I looked to see, and I'm hoping that they didn't hide it behind the house or something, but I.
Yeah, it was, if you're looking at the building that used to be the kitchen showroom,
Right,
it was on the left side of the building. So it was down a level,
uh-huh,
but it was very visible from the road.
right,
The only thing that I thought of, because of what the feedback was as to why that trailer was there, was if there was an alternate method of emptying the sewage rather than putting it in the septic tank. Just like you come and suck up a portalette,
right,
that would eliminate the need for overloading the septic system. Or if the existing septic system were pumped more frequently, and I don't know what frequency would prevent the system from being overloaded.
Well, how did we come to the determination that that was actually overloading the system to begin with?
Number of bedrooms.
So strictly based on the
Septic
design
plan.
element, not by any actual validation that the system was actually overloaded.
Right, because
Yeah.
from what was relayed to me about this was a almost a medical situation where someone needed care and temporary housing. If there was a way, I mean, obviously they have to apply for a permit. That's step one. But if there was a way to grant them a temporary trailer permit within our rules and regulations, then I personally, if this, what we're being told is what's going on down there, if there was a way to alleviate overloading the septic system, then I would be willing to entertain that. But I'm not an expert on what that would be. And obviously they never applied for a permit, so it can't be accepted or rejected.
Well, we know, as you know, we do have a mechanism within the Board of Health for a temporary permit to be applied for when somebody runs into the need for a trailer, because 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, we had a situation that developed which prompted us to create a temporary trailer permit.
Correct.
Be out of a need, and we felt that, you know, there could be situations where a need might arise if for some reason a homeowner loses use of their home for some reason, or a fire or something like that. And so if their property allows and they have the they have the means, if they have a trailer, to stay on their property, but operate out of the trailer because something is going to need to be worked on their home. You know, I believe we felt that we wouldn't want to deny somebody the ability to do that, and, you know, because there's a need there, right?
Correct.
And as you just mentioned, this may be a situation where you mentioned a medical need. So I would look at that as you know, a need here potentially that should be considered or looked at to kind of help these people. When we say that the system's being overloaded, I kind of want to be careful about using that term because as you all know, the design of a septic system is based on the design of a home in terms of how many bedrooms are in the home, right? And so a system is designed based on that premise. But does it ever actually mean that the actual system is ever going to come close to being quote unquote physically overloaded? Chances are probably not. So
Unless it's never pumped.
right. And so in a standard tank leach field arrangement, I mean, the downside of a system being overloaded, it's going to really fall upon the owners of the home. They're not going to want to see that happen. And they're going to know kind of quickly if they have a bit of a problem when it does really manifest itself. We know by Title V guidelines what has to be put in place based on the design of a home, but I personally wouldn't want to use that as in saying that they're overloading the system simply because they're connecting a trailer to it for the purpose they say that they're using the trailer for. I think the Board of Health has to kind of look at this and really be kind of reasonable in the application. The other thing I'll add to this is, however, even though we at the Board of Health created this temporary trailer, does the fact what John's saying about the bylaws supersede the Board of Health's offering of a temporary trailer permit?
That's very possible. But at minimum right now, unfortunately, we have a trailer on a piece of property with no permit, and we have an illegal septic connection.
No, understood. So to put them in compliance from a Board of Health perspective, because I think the Board of Health domain is Title V, septic, well, right? So are we potentially saying here that irrespective of a bylaw that exists at the town level, is it sufficient to say that the Board of Health could step in here and support this use of the trailer from what we might believe to be a reasonable usage to help out a resident in need?
Well,
I
unfortunately,
think you definitely have to put a time limit on it for sure. I mean, you couldn't say, well, you could do it forever. But my understanding from Danielle, it was Danielle, right, that told us about that, Jack?
Correct.
And she said that I didn't hear any health issue things. I heard that he was there working, doing some work, and is that what you heard?
Yes, the person that's living in the trailer is not a Mendon resident.
Right.
She is the sister of the brother who works at Zook's, so he's not even a property owner either.
Right.
Zook's just said to an employee, yes, you could park my trailer on my property to have your sister closer to you. So I don't think the Board of Health's emergency permitting of a trailer would qualify for this.
Right. Yeah.
all right.
Well, it's not an emergency permitting, it's a temporary use permit.
Or even a temporary use permit, because the house didn't burn down or something else. It's just the sister just living on somebody else's property, be closer to the brother. No?
Well, so then I would ask, and I don't know if you have one handy, Jack, do you have access to our temporary permit application?
I have the select board's permit application for a trailer, but not the Board of Health's.
Right, so I'd be wondering, because it's been a while, what did we put on our application for the guidelines to submit an application to be approved by the Board of Health for usage of a temporary trailer?
I'll take a look for the word trailer in the Missy's files.
What I'm concerned about here now, Jack just brought in a third element. Now, he just mentioned select board. Now, does that mean that there is more than one version of this type of allowance that has to be considered beyond what the Board of Health created? Yes, Alan.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna run out of battery power, folks.
Oh,
So if I cut out, I'm done.
okay.
Just letting you know. I guess, see, I was under the impression that the young lady staying in the trailer had a medical need for the brother to take care of.
I'm just taking a look at the
I
trailer
might not have
permit.
the story correct.
It's up
I'm
on
sorry.
the screen
What was your
here.
question, Alan?
I was under the impression that the woman staying in the trailer had a medical need and the brother needed her close so that he could help take care of her.
That was my understanding from Danielle when she met with him.
Okay, so that's where that medical need element, family need comes in. But like I said, there's been no one, we essentially have an illegal septic hookup, an illegal potable water set up,
Right.
and we have a trailer without a permit, and no one has come to us and asked us for any assistance.
Well, have we, I guess, well, now they probably are aware, in Danielle's visit, did Danielle make them aware that that the Board of Health has a temporary trailer permit to apply for?
No, Laura sent me what the select board uses. I'm going to try and find it. And that's what she presented to him.
So herein lies a problem that I think we need to resolve. And this is sometimes where town government can be confusing for residents. I guess I'd want to determine, it seems like we have a couple of different variables here when it comes to this temporary trailer situation. So which entity has priority and authority with regard to the authorization of a temporary trailer permit? The Board of Health created one a few years ago to basically in response to a situation that at the time we felt there was no element of guidance for. So we created one because it involves septic and water hookup, which is the domain of the Board of Health. But now I'm hearing there's something coming from the Select Board that they have. And is that one and the same with what John is quoting from the building department standpoint?
Well, the application, if you can see it on screen,
Right.
that Laura sent me, it looks exactly the same as BOH's.
Right.
So, which is good. So we have some consistency here, but this is, what's at the very top of this application, Jack? Okay, it is referencing Select Board. Okay, if you could scroll down through for me on this one. Okay, keep going. Yeah,
Board of
okay.
Health Toilet facilities approved. See, you have to have that approved, that,
Okay, so they've incorporated the Board of Health into their permit
right.
as a reference for the approval.
Right, and Joyce, you'll see there's a 6-month time period on that at the bottom.
Right.
That's correct. It's 6 months, and I know the way the Board of Health had phrased it was if it needed to go longer, potentially they could be given an extension, but they'd have to come before the board to explain the need, and then the board would have to vote to determine whether or not we'd extend it.
Right, and they had to apply for that extension prior to the expiration,
That's
Right.
correct. That's correct.
which is pretty standard across the Board of Health world as
Mhm.
far as how our permitting goes and our extensions go.
Right.
It's
So
not-
are we saying in this scenario then that the application that takes precedence is the Select Board's application as a subset of that application validating that the Board of Health is okay from a facility usage perspective? Or are we also saying, hey, you also have to fill out the application at the Board of Health as well?
Well,
Well-
here it says, the select board shall issue temporary trailer permits only to persons who have obtained a building permit for construction or of a permanent home or business building, provided that A, permits have been obtained from the building commissioner. B, the toilet facilities approved by the Board of Health per their regulation and the state sanitary code. And C, are in compliance with the rules and regulations of the building, plumbing, and electrical inspectors.
So basically what this is saying is that the select board is presenting it as the overriding authority to approve usage of a temporary trailer based on them meeting the conditions outlined in yellow in what Jack's showing us.
Correct. I think the reason that they would fill out our permit is there's an inspection element where there's an expense incurred. And that's why we have a fee.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say they would have to fill out our application in addition to
Right.
the select board. And I would assume that,
And this one actually has to do with 21 Maple Street, Milford Street.
well, that's the notation.
Yeah.
So
I am
this
out-
has already been cited.
I am out sick with COVID. I'm working as much as I can. Are you in touch with the owner of 21 Milford Street? Could you get them the application? And do you know if they have applied for a building permit or come to the Board of Health for toilet facilities? The select board does not meet again until 2/18. This could wait until I am back and fully functioning.
So in my view, I'm thinking that we should at minimum be presenting this application or the knowledge of such an application from the Board of Health to the property owner, who would
Right.
be filling this application out to say, hey, this is what you need at minimum to try to get things officially approved and validated, at least from the Board of Health perspective.
But you see the part in yellow up in that permit? What it says?
Jack, you moved off of it.
Oh, all right. Let me find it again.
Oh, well, it's right here. It's right.
Yeah, it's right
here,
there on number
exactly.
one.
Yep. You're all right.
But I guess we also need to consult with the building inspector to get his opinion on it, which we sort of already know.
Well, so that was the question I raised. We have three different levels here that we're now aware of with regard to the approval of a temporary trailer. We have this within the bylaws that in this, based on this statement, flat out says no trailer coach park shall be established within the limits of the town. Okay, so how does that come into play with regard to what might be considered a reasonable allowance for the use of a temporary trailer if the resident is experiencing some sort of a hardship?
But it's not the resident of the house.
No, it's not. But
No,
is
it's
that a
worker.
condition?
It's a worker that's come into their place and he's working with them.
Correct. So I'm not seeing anywhere, at least in our application, or even on the select board's application, it looks like they're asking for the property owner, I believe, to fill out the application. But nowhere in the application is it saying this can only be done and can only be utilized by an actual resident of the town of Mendon. We know it's Mendon property. Nowhere am I seeing where we're limiting specifically, oh, you can't do this for someone who's not a resident. You know what I'm saying?
But we have name of applicant, which could be different from name of property owner.
It's quite possible. Chances are the person who's going to fill this out is going to be the property owner.
Right, but as I'm reading the top of the application, it is possible for them to be two different people.
Oh, it could be. It could be. I would think if I were the owner of this property, I'd probably be the one that would step forward and be the applicant. Because I'm going to be doing it, it's on my property, and I'm providing the service potentially to, for whatever reason, on my property to utilize my utilities. Irrespective of who actually uses the trailer, is that actually a requirement as far as these applications are concerned. If it turns out to be somebody, a relative of mine that doesn't live in the town, but they're in need, and so I have the ability to offer them use of a trailer temporarily for a particular reason, and I'm doing it on my property in the town of Mendon. So as the property owner, I'm going to apply and in accordance with what's out there, and hopefully, the idea would be they'd get approval. I'd get approval, but who actually resides in that trailer? Is that really an issue of concern for the town of Mendon?
Well, I don't think it's an issue of concern for myself, provided, I mean, obviously what we're learning here, if we didn't already know, is select board, building department, and board of health are all involved with making this decision. And it sounds as though maybe, I don't know if the select board is even aware of it. We're aware of it. Building is aware of it.
Well, I think the initial one that has always been in play, I believe, is the bylaw. I think the bylaw has been, I'm not sure, but it's because it's chapter X, but I think that's been there for a while. I believe the next element that came forward was the Board of Health application. And I believe the last element that came into existence was the Select Board's application. Because I think it was as a result of the situation, if you recall, Alan, that warranted us to put forth the application from the Board of Health perspective. And I think that generated a desire at the select board level to create something as well, I believe.
Because I think according to our bylaws, no trailers are allowed in Mendon.
Right.
Yeah, as Jack just
Right.
showed there, no trailer coach
But-
park.
I would say at this point, we kind of know what we got,
Yeah,
which doesn't meet any of the requirements yet. And we need to work with the other boards, the select board and the building department. And, the property owner needs to step up.
oh yeah, I mean, I just go back to, have we made the property owner aware from the Board of Health perspective, because at the moment, that's all we can control, that an application exists that you need to fill out to potentially be in compliance? Have we done that?
Danielle has given the brother the paperwork and the bylaw of the mobile home for the property,
Okay, so he's got the
Right, but that's
application
not
in
the
hand.
homeowner.
but not the homeowner, no, not to my knowledge, no.
So maybe to Tom's point, we need to send something directly to the homeowner, property owner.
Because it's the property owner that, to me, is the entity that I would want to see involved in this application process.
I'm
But,
on board with that.
I agree, but again, when I talked to Danielle, I just, I thought the guy was there for work and he was living in the mobile home and he brought his sister there.
right.
But he was there in the mobile home because he had a job there.
And that could be. So I think we have on the applications, we cite a line where we want you to explain the reason why you want this. I'm not saying that these applications automatically mean that we're going to approve it, but they have to at least go through the process of filling out the applications to even be
Right.
considered to be
Well,
in
even
compliance.
The select board's application, it would not let them be there because it was not for that kind of thing. It's if something happened in the house and their own house and they could do that, not another person from another place.
So are you saying the select board's application has a specific list of reasons why you can have it?
Right, Jack, have you got that? Can you put that
Yeah,
back
let me-
up?
I
Yep.
may have missed that. If that's the
Yep.
case,
Folks, I could cut out at any minute. I apologize.
no worries.
I need more battery capacity.
Have you heard of a power plug into the electrical outlet in the wall?
Hey, I need help turning this thing on and dialing in.
So what do we got here? Scroll down there a little bit, Jack. All right, trailer information. Yeah, proposed use of trailer. Okay. Okay, keep going. Well, temporary permits, that's better. Is that all there is to it?
Yeah, it's
No.
only one page.
I think when you read that chapter 10, that section that was highlighted, it pretty
Right.
much spelt out the
You
reason
can't do
for
it.
granting a permit.
Right.
So, but is that chapter 10 connected with the select board's application, or was that something else?
I thought it was with the select board's application.
Jack, is that correct? Are you?
Give me a second here.
Either that or it's in the town's bylaw.
Well, so I thought
That
I was
says
taking it that
yeah,
Jack
that
was showing
says
us a
there's
separate
no-
document altogether that
trailer
had
parks
nothing to
allowed
do
in
with the
town.
select board application. That he was showing us something related to the bylaws. Right. You know what I'm saying? So what you're showing us now, Jack, is this connected to the select board's application?
Yes.
Yes, this is what Laura did give me. She gave me these and the application from the select board.
Okay. So chapter X, so what is that reference to, though?
This is the Mendon's bylaws. So I just,
That's 10.
Right,
Chapter
so
10.
what I'm saying is what we're looking at right now is
Number
chapter.
1. Just
is
read
chapter
number
10.
1.
I know,
Read
but we're
number one.
looking at an excerpt from the bylaws. Right? We're not looking at a document. We're not looking at elements that are attached to the select board's application. We're looking at elements of the bylaws right now,
correct,
right?
correct, yes.
So what Jack
But
is
it does
saying,
say it shall issue temporary trailer permits only to persons who have obtained a building permit for construction of a permanent home or business building, provided that A, permits have been obtained from the building commissioner, B, toilet facilities are approved by the Board of Health per regulation and the state sanitary code, and C, in compliance with the rules and regulations of the building, plumbing, and electrical inspectors.
right?
So they're not doing that. They've got a worker that's come up from probably Pennsylvania or New Jersey or one of the places where they live and is up here and working.
Yeah, but there's nowhere in this language choice that indicates the specific reason that you're just talking about. This is just outlining the guidelines that someone is supposed to follow for applying for a temporary permit,
Right.
a temporary application.
It means
But
that
it
they're-
doesn't have anything to do with the reason of somebody coming up from somewhere to live in it. This is just
Right.
outlining the application process.
and the reasons for that application, the reason for that, the temporary permit only to persons who have obtained a building permit. That's what this is saying. This is the selectmen's requirements for a temporary trailer permit.
Yeah, but section 3 says no person shall occupy a trailer or mobile home for living or business purposes without a permit from the select board.
Correct.
And then items 1 and 2 outline the process for going through the application to acquire to get permission to do it. But it
Correct.
doesn't have to do with anyone coming up from some other state. There's no reference to the specific reason why the trailer
The
wants to be.
reason is there. The reason is because they say their house was on fire.
But there's no, in this wording, there's no reason mentioned in any of this wording. None.
What, I don't understand why you say that.
Where do you see the specific reasons that are outlined and how you can use the trailer? I think you went on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry. It says no person shall occupy a mobile home for living or business purpose without permit from the select board. The
Yeah.
select board shall issue temporary trailer permits only,
Yep.
only to
Yep.
persons who have obtained a building permit for
Mhm.
construction of a permanent home or business building, provided that the building commissioner, the toilet facility. So you're not there to just be an extra little visitor on the property because you're working for them.
So that would rule out then the concept of what the Board of Health kind of had in mind with regard to a potential reasonable reason why somebody might have to use a trailer in a, what do you call it, a distressed situation.
Right. I don't believe so, Tom. I mean,
Do-
I hear what you're saying.
Right.
Do the bylaws of the town trump anything that we've talked about?
That's what that's what I mentioned
I
earlier.
think
Right,
this
so
does. I think
that's
this
the
does.
law.
Yeah, I think
So-
it does.
It almost makes it impossible in this situation for us to help these people.
Right. But
So therein lies the
what
question,
I
right?
did recommend to Danielle to tell them that there is a very nice trailer park in Douglas, which is not that far away, where they can have water and sewer and everything on hook up, and even during the winter. I did tell her to talk to them about that. Now, I don't know if she went back and did that or not. But
Well, again, if we're reading and understanding what we read,
Mhm.
the law of the town would prohibit us from this situation.
that's, in my opinion, yes. Now,
Yeah, and that
what
trailer,
that's worth,
that trailer has been outfitted to stay there a while. So,
but
as
it's for
much-
his convenience because he's working for them.
yeah, so I mean, again, it appears that this situation, there is nothing we can do to make it apply.
Right. There is no
I
other
don't think
reason.
so.
Right.
Based
the
on
law
what
of
the
land
bylaws
is the
say.
law of the land.
Right.
Right.
And if that's the case, then the only element that comes into play from our perspective has nothing to do with the reason.
You're right.
Right.
So it doesn't, you got it.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
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 You know.
And I thought that was
mean,
gonna be a simple topic.
I love the Sooks. They're good people. They're nice people. They're very, but again, there are rules and there are rules.
Well, that's why, after thinking about it, I was trying to think of a way that the septic system would work.
Right.
When I heard that, outside of the fact that it's an illegal connection, is there a way that they can empty the system more often, that they can do this or do that but that's the town bylaw.
And I
Right.
think that was John Erickson's point in the first place, because Danielle
Yeah,
did
we
mention
can't
that to
change it.
him.
Right.
Like he goes, they should even have it on the property, period. So whatever the Board of Health wants to do, it
Right.
shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a moot point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
All right. So before we lose Alan, do we want to schedule the next meeting?
Sure.
Alan, did we lose you
I think
already?
we lost him. Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah.
You might
Either
have lost
that or
him.
He's bagging out on us.
Call his cell phone, Jack. Put him on speaker. That
That
counts.
Oh. I did pull papers today,
Oh, you did? Hey, all right.
just so you know.
Awesome.
All right.
If you want.
So we have you on speaker.
Sign them.
All right. So I have talked. Can everybody hear Alan? Say hello, Alan.
Hello, Alan.
All right. So we're going to schedule the next meeting.
All
All right. So as I've mentioned, when I saw Ellen this morning, the select board is having the same meeting nights as the Board of Health, and we are in high demand, and so is the select board. So we're looking to change it to the second and the fourth Wednesdays of the month. Second and the fourth Wednesdays of the month. So the next meeting date is scheduled for March 8th. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Yeah. Didn't now, was that a relatively new change? I always thought the select board met on the Mondays.
They've been, I don't know when it happened, but they've been on Wednesdays for maybe about 2 months now.
Okay. Yeah, it does make it kind of tough when you have, multiple boards, especially with a lot of,
And we
know,
can't
issues
have
that-
Lonnie can't be, in with us either at the same time, because he's on the board. select
Right,
board, So that's
right.
tough.
And it makes it difficult for a resident who has an interest in a lot of different issues to kind of like, oh, what do I go to the? So
Right.
yeah, I'm more than open to being flexible.
All right, Alan has something to
Right.
say.
Is he on mute, Jack?
No, he said that he thinks that select board's changing our dates because our ratings are higher than theirs.
Well, if that's the case, then we should be able to tell them, hey, you guys change your date.
All right, so March 8th at 6:30.
Yep.
March
I'm
8th,
good.
6:30, okay.
That's good. Got it in my calendar already.
Yeah.
That was my mother's birthday.
Ah,
And
very
so that
nice.
will give Tom Ryder another week extra to work on the well regulations.
Yep. And that'll give you an extra week of adding to your FYI for BOH category.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. Say hello, Alan, again. Hello, Alan. All right, so I just want to make sure they can hear you when you make the motion.
Okay, so, all right, well, I'll make the motion. I think we're all set for tonight. Thank you all. I'm going to make the motion to adjourn for the evening.
I will second that motion.
All in favor? Tom, aye.
Aye.
Alan, aye.
Aye. He says yes. Aye.
Joyce,
Alan,
aye.
aye. Alan Iverson. No. Excellent. Well, thank you all. Alan,
Good
thank
night.
you.
All right, good night.
And,
night.
tell Alan that Joyce pulled papers if he didn't hear that.
Wow, that's awesome.
There you
wanna
go.
Are you gonna come and sign them and bring yours and I'll sign yours?
I'll come sign yours.
What? Wait a minute.
I can't plan that far ahead.
You gotta get going.
That's right.
Hello? Hello?
All right, he's
Hello?
leaving. All right, we're all going to bed.
Good night.
night.
Good
All right,
night.
good night, all.